for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Six o'clock on the dot. A very good morning to you. You're very welcome on this Wednesday, the 13th of March, to breakfast here in GB News with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Welcome to the programme. Leading for us this morning, what took so long? Pressure on the PM as another Tory racism row has emerged over a donor's remarks over Diane Abbott.
The sub-postmasters, the government, to introduce new legislation to quash their convictions.
Rogue Russian soldiers caught invading their own country. Could this impact Putin's election later this week?
Keir Starmer promises Dame Esther Rantzen there will be a vote on assisted dying should he win the election.
And speaking of elections, Donald Trump is now officially the presumptive Republican nominee for president as he secures more primary wins overnight.
And in the sport this morning, on a nervy night in North London, David Raya is the hero as Arsenal scrape past Porto on penalties. Novak Djokovic loses to the world number 123, and the darts player banned for punching his opponent.
Morning, there'll be very heavy rain across northwestern areas through the next few days, but elsewhere it'll be very mild. Find out all the details with me a little later on.
Right, racist and wrong. Prime Minister didn't say that, but a spokesperson did after he's branded the comments made by a major Tory party donor about the first woman black MP, Dan Abbott, overnight. The comments came from Frank Hester.
Yeah, and he is one of the party's biggest donors. He gave £10 million to the Conservatives, and he told a meeting that Diane Abbott should be shot and made him want to hate all black women. He has since apologised.
However, it's the lack of immediate condemnation of his remarks which are now causing the Prime Minister a political headache. Let's go to James Price, who joins us now. He's former Chief of Staff to Nadeem Zahawi. James, this is the whole thing. What has taken the Prime Minister? Why does he need a spokesperson to say this?
Well, I think that these stories come along and they blow out of the water the kind of carefully crafted government grid, the kind of narrative, the things the government would like to be talking about on the day. And he is the Prime Minister of a major nuclear world economic power, and one would hope that he's got other things he has to do on the start of a week to get things going again. Obviously, everybody, it's stupid and unpleasant to have said these things. There was this, was it racist or was it just unwise? Right, I think probably not. I'm not the best place to say. I wouldn't have said these things. I'm sure this chap, thinking back, wouldn't have wanted to have said any of this stuff.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Well dodged, whatever. If I was the Prime Minister, I would immediately know if this was right or wrong. It's obviously wrong. I don't know why the man isn't saying it, why he needs someone else to say it for him. How much of it's got to do with 10 million quid he'll look like having to hand back?
Yeah, I think that gets to the nub of it, doesn't it? Although it does seem a very odd punishment for this guy to have said something stupid, and what does he get in return? He gets his £10 million back.
That's true, but I mean, look, to me, what this smells of is weakness from the Prime Minister, and he was quite clearly pushed into a corner by Kemi Badenoch, who came out and called it and said this is racist. Let's call a spade a spade. William Hague, former Conservative Party leader, also saying that, and it took the Prime Minister following on from what they were saying to actually change his position. And that's not a good look.
Yeah, I think it certainly speaks very well of Kemi Badenoch that she's able just to come out and, as you say, just set these things straight. And she's had these sorts of issues in a previous brief. She used to be the Women and Equalities Minister as well, so she's kind of quite well placed to work on these things. I like to think that perhaps that there's just a level of reticence to wade into these sorts of issues because people are so desperate not to say the wrong thing and get in trouble. I don't think that it's just a case that they want to...
Well, you could hardly say the wrong thing. There's only the right thing to say now.
You can't stand on the steps of Number 10 and say you want the highest standards of decency within your cabinet and then just call something wrong but not say why. You've got the time and space to say something's wrong, but you can't admit what it's wrong, what the grievance is. I mean, it's unacceptable. He got there in the end, but is it too late for him? When we've heard about this emergency meeting with the 1922 committee behind closed doors, he's in a very difficult position, Rishi Sunak. He's on thin ice, isn't he?
I wouldn't envy him in this position right now. It just seems it's one more difficult thing after another. I think that maybe the problem he's got in this particular case is that we're so used to cancel culture now, right? Someone says something from a long time ago. I think these comments were 5 years ago. Well, the world's changed quite a lot, even in 5 years. Stupid things. So this guy who's a super successful businessman, employs lots of people, is his whole life to be ruined by this issue now? I think it was Kemi Badenoch that said there should be a kind of grace period now, and that it is things like forgiveness that has made the modern world. And let's hope that Rishi can now get back to focusing on the massive to-do list.
I can't see what your grace period is, saying it makes you want to hate all black women or shoot this woman. I don't really see how that was... it wasn't so bad to say that 5 years ago. Don't get that, mate.
No, I think that's a fair point. But I think that, what is the context of this? Was he trying to be, I don't know, one of the lads in a meeting and sort of go on like that and try and think, oh, isn't this funny? I'm trying to get a bit of banter. He's a successful software company engineer. Maybe they're not known for their sense of humour.
But how many people from diverse backgrounds, Rishi Sunak amongst them, yesterday, must have been asking themselves, if the government are not going to call out racism, then what does that say about my status in this country, in society? People have been born in Britain who serve, like Rishi Sunak, serving his country, but people are afraid to call... it's just such a bad message to be sending out.
Yeah, I think that's fair. My old boss, you mentioned Nadim Zahawi, born in Baghdad, came over here when he was 9 years old, fleeing Saddam Hussein's death squads, subject of all kinds of horrendous abuse. But I think, we lose sight of what are the real problems here in society. Is it this guy saying these stupid things? It's not the most awful race crime that's ever happened. When you look at Diane Abbott, some of the things that she's come out and said, Chairman Mao, on balance, did more good than harm. The man was responsible for the deaths of more people than anyone in human history under his kind of communist ideology. She's currently not got the Labour whip because she said that Jewish people and Roma people can't suffer racism themselves. So, it's almost a way of kind of her being able to dodge this now.
Well, two MPs have been killed in the past 5 years, murdered in the past 5 years. So I just still think it's a no-go, completely taboo area. But let me ask you something else, James. 10 million quid. Where does the Conservative Party come up with 10 million quid? It's OK, people say, hand this money back. Could they actually do that? Would they have their access to £10 million?
Well, I think people always get this... The scale of money in British politics is always massively overestimated, right? This is the biggest donation that the Tories have ever had. The Labour Party bankrolled by the trade unions. But the amount of money in British politics is really small fry. And I've been there on the inside. The amount of influence that it gets you is wonderfully really, really small. You're going to talk about the American election coming up soon. It's billions of dollars that get spent on that, and they have real influence in these things. But in Britain, wonderfully, you can only spend, 12 grand in an election campaign per constituency? I think we're really lucky that we don't have that kind of money influencing politics.
So you don't think, despite the calls, you don't think Sunak or the Tories would be able to put their hands in the till and say, look, OK, have this 10 million quid back?
Well, I think that the Prime Minister personally could probably fill the stopgap should he need to. I think his wealth has been fairly widely reported. But I do think that, this is money at the end of the day that's going to go on just paying the salaries of ordinary people inside the Conservative Party who believe in the missions of the Tories and all these sorts of things coming into the election. So that money to go back to line the pockets of a guy who's already quite rich at the expense of frankly, of people's jobs going into the election. I think that perhaps the guy's punishment enough is being kind of castigated by the world's media for now, and if he gets his money back as well, he could just take himself on a nice holiday, rather it be spent on trying to fight the Labour Party, as far as I'm concerned.
Let's talk about the Post Office, shall we? The government putting through emergency legislation to exonerate the wrongfully convicted. Hugely welcome news. Slight concern that a couple of people might slip through the net who are actually guilty of crimes and could be exonerated, but on the balance, this is a good move.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're the one sub-postmaster who was stealing things, you've got to be thinking, how did I get away with this now? But no, you're completely right. By and large, what it shows as well is that when there's enough pressure on something, that Parliament can actually act. We've been seeing there's not a huge amount of legislation being done at the moment, the scale of challenges that Britain has, and we don't see that the British state is acting with the kind of speed that it needs to. And it is upsetting that it's taken a television drama for this kind of injustice to be righted, but at least it has been.
And there's going to be a small amount of compensation given out to all of those involved, but not anything like what they're owed. That's not likely to happen in this Parliament, is it?
I fear that's probably the case. But again, maybe this can set a precedent for when other scandals like this come along again, that people will actually be listened to, and it won't take Mr Bates versus the Post Office to get these kind of things going. We can't have government being done by this. And I think it just shows another structural weakness with what I think is the real problem in the United Kingdom at the moment, which is that the civil service is so stuck in the mud and not able to get anything done. We can't build any infrastructure, we can't build any houses, we can't do any of these things. And it takes a television drama for us even to get justice for these poor postmasters.
OK, James, thank you. Interesting take on things. James is a political commentator. Thank you very much indeed. Speak again later. Thank you. If you've got a view, gbviews@gbnews.com. Other news coming into the newsroom this morning. This is what we've got for you. Keir Starmer has promised a vote on assisted dying if he wins the next election. Speaking to Dame Esther Ranson, who recently revealed she's joined the assisted dying clinic Dignitas, he admitted he's personally in favour of changing the law.
The couple arrested in connection with an investigation into a funeral home in Hull have both been bailed. A total now of 35 bodies and what police have called a quantity of suspected human ashes have now been moved to another mortuary after police received more than 1,000 phone complaints from the public. We want to hear from you on this story. Have you been affected? gbviews@gbnews.com.
A rematch between Donald Trump and Joe Biden is set as both passed the delegate threshold and secured the presumptive nominations for Republicans and Democrats overnight. The nominations will be made official come the summer at party conventions. The 81-year-old president has said he's honoured voters backed his re-election despite questions over his age in recent weeks. So apparently what Joe Biden is doing or going to do is to joke about his age in almost everything. So they've done a number of little sketches and they laugh at this and whatever it is, which I think is appalling.
Yeah, it's not funny.
I don't think it's funny at all.
It's not a laughing matter.
I think there's lots of people who are very elderly and very sensible, and there are lots of people who aren't. And you're either one or the other, and you can't just say, oh, dearie me, I didn't mean to press that nuclear button because I just had a moment or whatever it was. But it looks like, you know, he's going to get away with it.
I think age is going to be the big story of this election. Not only are both candidates in their late 70s, I think one of them is going to be 80 by the time November comes around, but also the age of the electorate. I was reading over the weekend, something like 25 million Americans have died since 2016 when Trump was first elected. And how has that shifted the demographic as a younger cohort of people have come through? Who are they more likely to support of the two parties? And I do think that age is going to be the big story of 2024.
It's not so much age, it's capability. That's the thing. The age doesn't worry me. It's how capable they are. And Biden certainly does not look capable. gbviews@gbnews.com.
We're focusing on Russia now. They've quelled an attempted attack from some rogue Russian soldiers. Quite an interesting story, this.
They were volunteers and they are based in Ukraine, and they drove tanks and armoured vehicles across the border. This is the biggest cross-border incursion since the war began.
Well, the raid comes as Ukrainian drones struck key oil refineries, exacerbating a petrol crisis in Russia that already exists.
Let's go to the defence editor of the Evening Standard, Robert Fox, for him to cast his eye over all this. Robert, very good to see you, my friend. I'm just trying to work out who these rebels are. How did they come about? Are they Ukrainian? Are they pro-Ukrainian? Or are they just anti-Russian?
Bit of both. Some of them are Russians. It's very difficult in those border areas to know quite, who they would have identified themselves as about 10 years ago. But they're led by an element that are really, they claim to be Russians, but very anti what is going on in Russia. I think that this is really more propaganda value than military value, but it is worrying for the Russians, and the Russians are casting around for a lot of disruptive activities. They're being quite disruptive again in the Middle East and not helpful over the crisis with the Houthis, not helpful with the crisis over Gaza as they extend their influence into Russia, into the Mediterranean. They're active in Africa again, and they're messing around, it seems, in Moldova, which is very close to, of course, just off Ukraine, and it brings them into conflict again with NATO. They're messing around with a referendum in the Transnistria region, which is ethnically Russian to a large extent. Everybody's holding their breath, Eamonn, really, because they're wondering, is now the Russian spring offensive coming on its way? Is it just days or maximum weeks away? And can the Ukrainians withstand that?
I suppose in all of this, we have to ask if the death of Navalny recently plays any part in this, perhaps emboldening some of the anti-Putin feeling within Russia or amongst Russians, not least because there is an election, albeit not democratic, but another election which will see Putin win. But there will be lots of talk at the moment about the future of the country.
You're quite right. It comes towards the end of the week. It's between the 15th and the 17th. It'll be a coronation. I think it's the 5th or 6th election, so-called, in inverted commas, that Putin will have contested to lead the Russian people. Isabel, the really interesting thing about it is how nervous Putin has been about it. Why do they need to deal with Navalny at that point and to get all opposition off the street? It is a big thing. He wants to make himself look good and look strong. And I think by next week, after he's re-coronated, I think we should put it as crudely as that, I think there will be a big statement, because the big question is, yes, Russia is getting ready for an offensive, but as Ukraine, to an extent, has been exhausted by its offensive of last year, which didn't work, it's very difficult to see how repeatedly Russia could do this. The economy is booming on oil and defense, but that doesn't go on forever, and there are cracks somewhere. So I think we are in for a decisive few weeks.
Well, we've got an election this weekend, or President Putin's got an election this weekend. How likely is it that those voters in Russia would know anything about this uprising, this rebellion that is going on?
Absolutely right. Very little indeed. Very little indeed. It would, of course, been excluded. I think that these elements will go on doing it. They're quite good at disruption. More important, I think, was the strike on the petrol and oil refinery. They are getting drone attacks into Russia. It is hitting, they say, infrastructure. Actually, it's hitting things that need to supply those forces at the front. They've got about 300,000 plus committed to this fight in and around Ukraine, and it needs a lot of support. And the one place where Russia is not winning is on the waves in the Black Sea, where the Ukrainians, with no navy to speak of at all, is doing very well in bottling up the Russian Black Sea fleet, which means they can get the Ukrainians can get the grain and exports out. But the real point is actually relates to your previous story, where America is going to be over this in the next few months, because Ukraine, as we have seen, is becoming quite a big agenda issue in the US. The Europeans have to prepare, this includes Britain, to sustain Ukraine over a long period with less help, not no help, but less help. Let's be practical, from the US.
Robert, appreciate your take on things. We've got to leave it there. Robert Fox, defence editor at the Evening Standard.
Now, if I remember correctly, this time yesterday we were being told we might have a bit of a break in all of this drudgery and gloom and doom weather-wise. Let's see if Annie Shuttleworth is sticking to her promises. Here's today's forecast.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update. Heavy rain will persist across north and western areas through today and into Thursday, in fact. Whereas in the east, it will be much drier, brighter. And for everyone, it's going to be feeling much milder through the rest of the week. But very heavy rain will persist for parts of North Wales, the Lake District, southern areas of Scotland as well, particularly Dumfries and Galloway, seeing the heaviest of the rainfall. Further north, it should stay largely dry, apart from some very blustery showers. It will be very windy across northern Scotland. Gale force winds are expected, but in the south and east it's going to be a dry afternoon, breezy but still very mild, with highs of 15 or 16 degrees if we do see any breaks in the cloud. Through tonight, the rain is going to persist in similar areas, so it will stay very wet and overcast across North Wales and many northern areas of England, particularly across western coasts here, and we will see some outbreaks of rain moving into the southwest by Thursday morning. It should stay dry though in the far north and in the southeast, and for everyone it's going to be another very mild start to the day tomorrow. The rain will continue to push into northern areas, but it will shift slowly but surely further north into the central belt. Some more northern areas of Scotland seeing some rain later on in the day. We'll continue to see showers breaking out across southern areas of Wales, the southwest as well. These could turn quite heavy and be blustery too. But again, the far southeast should stay dry and bright, and we could see highs of 17 degrees. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
With the time at 6:20, let's get your mood lifted and your expectations on edge with the Great British Giveaway.
Yeah, there's lots on offer for you this time. A chance to win a garden gadget package, a shopping spree and an incredible £12,345 in tax-free cash.
And here's how you could make those prizes yours.
We've got cash, treats and a spring shopping spree to be won in the Great British Giveaway. You could win an amazing £12,345 in tax-free cash. Plus, there's a further £500 of shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. We'll also give you a gadget package to use in your garden this spring. That includes a games console, a pizza oven and a portable smart speaker, so you can listen to GB News on the go. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Right, well, have a go. Good luck to you. Paul Coit, Arsenal had a go on penalties last night.
They did.
And they did rather well.
They did, and Arsenal are through on penalties. First time in 14 years that they've managed to get through to this stage of the Champions League. And we've also got the darts player. We've got this darts player, Eamonn, who punched someone after a game.
Really?
Doesn't like to lose.
Gosh, yesterday it was a headbutt, today it's a punch.
The sport is getting very violent.
It's turning into politics.
It really is. There has to be a warning whenever I talk about the sport, but we'll do that very shortly. I have that.
OK.
Oh.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Just towards, you know, today, sports-wise, the newspaper is full of pictures, not of horses, but of ladies in fashion.
FOMO.
Because it would have been very, very difficult, so it would have been yesterday with the rain, how bad
we should dig out our pictures of our outfits in the rain the last couple of years. Yeah, we've had some wet
It was just
trips.
Rain, go to Spain.
Did you have one of those plastic... You had a top hat on that day, didn't you? Was that when you had the...
No,
that was the other one. That's Ascot.
Trilby style.
Right, yeah.
Country.
Because isn't there, when it rains at Ascot, they have like nappies, plastic things go over the top. Have you seen those?
Oh yeah, I have seen those. They're not like nappies. They're like the granny things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it just keeps the hat dry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like the granny.
You know how grannies put head shawls over their heads and tie them up? You get a plastic one of those.
Yeah.
But actually, if you're wearing proper headpiece, you can't put one of those on. So
Right.
it's no good
Well,
to you.
there's a lovely picture in the front of the Telegraph.
Oh,
today.
she's got a very Russian-style sort of furry hat.
That's one big furry hat.
But you know what? If it rained,
got on
can you
there.
imagine how that would smell? It'd be like a wet dog, wouldn't it? It'd be terrible.
What do you do with it for a year?
I know, you have to put it in front of the
She ever wear
fire.
that again? But she's a very beautiful woman, very, very good. But interesting, just about the racing and whatever it is. And I know we're going to talk to our friend again at 7:20. Ladies' Day has a... Listen to this.
Go on.
Rubbish.
OK.
Ladies' Day has a gender-neutral rebrand of the centuries-old tradition to become Style Wednesday.
Right.
A green-focused award has been launched to celebrate slow fashion. Slow fashion, Isabel, is old outfits or ones put together from charity shops or online resellers.
That I'm on board with, but I don't see why you have to take the ladies' bit out.
Will also be judged on their attire.
Oh, dear.
They all try too much.
Let us have our moment.
Yes, let us have our moment.
Just dress up and look nice if you want to.
Slow fashion is a good concept because us girls, do tend to wear things once and never again, and that's a shame.
Well, it's Style Wednesday, but I don't know about you, Eamonn, but I find that every day is...
Every day, with you two.
Quite frankly.
Did Arsenal do it in style last night against Porto?
Did they do it in style? Yeah, they were certainly better than Porto were, but Porto, they're a wily old team. You know, someone like Pepe, who's 40, who's still playing, who's still amazing. Just they really frustrated them. Martin Odegaard there scored in the second half, but...
So that was 1-1 on aggregate.
Well, yeah, but then 1-1, and then he scored, which was then disallowed. 14 years since there's Captain Black there, 14 years since the last Champions League qualification into the quarter-final. They lost the last 7 that they've been at this stage, Arsenal, and the last time that they did win was strangely against Porto. What a funny old game it is.
It is a funny old game.
And then they play Porto again.
It is.
And it was also the first champion... Now, this is an interesting one. The first Champions League penalty shootout for 8 years. In all of the Champions League, there's been no penalty shootouts at all.
Well,
you don't look amazed as I am.
Well, I'll tell you why, my friend. The Champions League, I've said all the time, until it gets to knockout stages, is quite a dull competition.
Yeah.
I don't like watching it. I
Sure.
don't, maybe because Man United don't feature in it as much as they used to, but no, I'm not keen. I'm not a huge fan.
Well, we're going to get onto that because they're talking about the change for next year. Because, you know, it's a 36-team Champions League and it's going to be done like a league. So the whole point of it is that there won't be any dead rubbers. So we're not going to get to the end of it because then you're going to get seeded teams will then go into the knockout stage. It's also, you know, I could go through it, but I could see your eyes would glaze over
Because I know
after
what it's all
about 2
about.
minutes. But the whole idea is that it's going to be a bit more competitive.
No, the whole idea is that more teams will get more money for longer. That's the whole idea.
That's usually the bottom line.
Yes.
Is about the cash.
Yeah, it's about the cash.
But to make it more interesting, then when you get seeded teams, the top 4 teams, when it goes to the knockout, can't meet until the semi-final, which, yes, would involve cash, but also it will make it more interesting for others as well.
Are you with us?
Just by the skin of my teeth, yeah.
OK.
But, you know, it's not my forte.
That was when I said the word Arsenal. That's when I started losing you.
That's why the FA Cup is still the best cup competition there is.
No, that is true.
So.
From a layman's perspective, I've got to agree with that.
I agree, but Friday is when the draw's going to be made. So already there, along with Arsenal. See, things are going to get tricky now. You've got Barcelona, Real Madrid, PSG, Bayern Munich, Manchester City, you've got Atletico and Inter Milan, Borussia Dortmund and PSV Eindhoven play tonight.
You see, all I'm here for, to be honest, Paul, is the punch-up. That's what I want to hear about.
Is that all you want to hear?
Well, yeah.
I've got all the Cheltenham, everything. You want to go straight to the punch-in?
Maybe we'll have to do that next time. We've only got a minute, and you've teased us about this punch-up, so I'm dying to hear.
Darts. Have a look at this. This is a player who is a professional, Adam Smith Neal. Now, there's him throwing darts.
Right,
there. Right. I've seen a problem. It's an amateur...
He's warming up here, isn't
amateur event. No, this is a game. Amateur event in Nuneaton last week. He's the world number 8 in 82. There's his opponent.
Yeah.
He's going for his double.
Yeah,
Everybody's just enjoying it. It seems very friendly.
Yeah.
Football on in the background for those not interested. Now, there we are. Thanks very much. No! Go on, have a look. Look, so there should be warning. Don't. They lost him. And he's like, God, what is all that about?
What was that all about?
Well, I have to say, oh, my goodness, and then it starts with someone else.
It's all a bit of argy-bargy. He's the pro, and he should be like, well done, shake his hand. But he was obviously very unhappy that he lost. And so he has since, surprise, surprise, been suspended by the darts organisation for... You can't...
Did you notice the person he punched went straight to get his darts? Very wise move.
Well, I don't know whether it's thinking, I'll keep the pointy darts with
Well, that's
me.
what I mean.
Those
Go
just
to
in
get his
case.
self-defence weapon.
Oh, OK, yeah.
And also the way the bouncer, who was really quite cut,
yes,
managed to call a day on all of that.
But as you gasped there with the punch, there's nothing sexy, lovely, smooth about fighting. It's just horrible. Can we show it again just to see the punch?
I can't
again?
even watch wrestling, boxing. I mean, I can just about manage rugby, but that's because no one...
But wrestling,
it's
just pantomime.
No, it's
But I don't... Yeah, I hate to see...
Just watch this, but as you say, the actual punch, there's nothing glamorous about it, really.
Oh,
I just think it's funny how the guy doesn't retaliate, he just goes to get his darts. Watch him.
So there we go.
There he goes, he wins.
A double here, is he?
Yeah, that's it.
There
we are. It's got his double.
turns around and
Shake
he
hands.
swings.
Just shake
Wallop.
hands.
Just for good.
And he gets his darts.
Gets his darts out.
Well, he did well.
And then here
to
comes the
absorb
bouncer
that.
and gives him a bit of what for.
Walks away from it.
Oh, well.
Yeah, nasty piece of work.
If you're listening on the radio, we'll make sure
they?
that's online for you so you can have a look at that. But,
Yeah. Well, next time round, we're going to be talking horses and we're going to be talking balls with Emma Raducanu. As if she hasn't got enough to worry about.
She's the one talking balls, I may say.
She is.
Literally.
Not you.
She is.
This time.
7:20. Look forward to that one. Still to come, we'll be looking at the front pages and biggest stories of the day. Norman Baker and Rennie Hunderkamp here on Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel. Love your company after this.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Household energy bills will fall by £238 per year. Good news. An average of £20 a month. That's as Ofgem unveils its new energy price cap. So joining us in the studio is GB News economics and business editor Liam Halligan.
The Ofgem energy price cap, that's the regulated amount that energy suppliers are allowed to charge, will fall from £1,928 a year to £1,690. That's from April the 1st. That's a drop of about 12%. That should save the typical household 20 quid a month. Prices are cheaper than they were, but they're still very elevated by historic standards. Certainly if you're an American household, a French household, even a Spanish or an Italian household, you're paying a lot less for your electricity and your energy in general than you are here in the UK. The energy companies have been a bit tricksy with the government because while they are lowering the energy price cap and the headlines are, well, your energy bills are coming down, blah, 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 the energy providers have actually chiselled out from Ofgem the permission to charge households an extra £2.33 a month on average. And the energy companies say that is money which they need, the energy companies, in order to support households who have got big debts on their energy bills. I don't know about you, but whenever I talk to people down the pub about energy bills, many of them say, well, the energy company's got like £2,000 of my money and it won't give it back to me. What's going on here? So there are lots of concerns about customer balances with energy companies, and it's also worth saying that as part of this announcement, the bit that no one will notice is that the energy companies are being able to charge all households to try and flatter the energy companies' balance sheets, which to me, on first reading, seems a bit odd.
The Dan Abbott controversy. Let's start with that as we talk through the papers with Norman Baker and Dr. Rennie Hunderkamp with this. Very good to see both of you. Norman, what is there to say? My main concern about well, there's so many concerns, but what takes Sunak so long to issue a, hey, this is wrong, Mr. Sponsor, shut your mouth or eat your words or whatever, and then he says it through a spokesperson? That's what gets me. If you're going to say it, why don't you just say, I said that?
I think, like many issues, he's worried about upsetting his right wing. That's what it's about. So he wants to be very careful. He doesn't want... He's in a very vulnerable position. He's in a weak position as a Prime Minister. He's got a warring party, and he doesn't want to upset any wing of it.
Hemi Badnoch wasn't afraid to upset the wing of it.
No, she wasn't, and good for her. And what she said was right. And it was only after she spoke, of course, that Number 10 was pulled into line. But actually, from my point of view, the other issue has not been focused on from that quote, is the suggestion that Diane Abbott, quote, should be shot. unquote. We've had two members of Parliament killed.
Yeah.
Really quite shocking.
So who really is going to be upset that you're criticising that? You're saying this is scandalous. I mean, I hear what you're saying, I understand what you say, and you say that to keep the right wing quiet. But so with the right wing going around and saying black MPs, particularly the Dan Abbotts of this world, should be shot?
No. I don't think they're saying that, but I think that was a clumsy phrase.
They're not saying that. They're not coming out and saying this is blooming disgraceful.
You can't call out racism because you're worried about upsetting part of your party. What does that say about that part of your party?
I'm afraid that's right, but I think there is a racist element within the right wing of the Conservative Party. I have to say that.
Gosh. And what do you think then, Renee?
I think that's a load of rubbish, to be honest with you. I mean, I would be called on the right of things, and I'm certainly not racist.
No, you're not. No.
Everything that this man has said is absolutely abhorrent. All of it, every single bit.
So why couldn't the Prime Minister say that?
Because I think he's just a weak man who's hiding, who just doesn't know how to stand up and be a conviction Prime Minister.
I find it shocking as well that he is, of Indian heritage, Hindu, surely has been a victim of racism himself during his life, and yet still can't find the gumption to call it out.
I mean, he could have just shut this down, couldn't he? He could have just come out yesterday, said everything he needed to say about it from every perspective, from the violence that we don't need to hear, suggested from anyone, from the racism within it. I don't even think it was that sexist. I think it was racist and it was violent and it was abhorrent.
Also sexist.
Yeah, a bit sexist, yes. But
well,
I don't.
It wasn't
that
against
isn't
black
major.
men. It was against black women. There was a sexist element to it.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Well, anyway,
your views very welcome on this one. Keep them coming in. We'll deal with those GB views at gbnews.com.
Renee, you've chosen a story that Eamonn and I really want to talk about and highlight this morning, and this is this funeral scandal. These 1,000 grieving relatives, either directly involved or worried that they are in some way involved, or the remains of their loved ones are really harrowing, and I can't think of another story ever really like it. Tell us what the Mail is saying. It's the front page, I think, of at least two of the newspapers this morning, the Times and the Sun.
It is, and it seems like the people. There was a young woman and a man in his 40s who were running these three funeral parlours, and it seems that over time, Lord knows how long, people have been burying coffins that possibly didn't have anyone in there. They've been handed ashes that are not of their relative, and some of them have even had jewellery made from the ashes, because you can have a diamond made to keep that person close to you, is not of the person they believe. It is the most horrible crime. You have to question, is it money that these people have done this for? Probably. Some weird power thing. But at the same time, grieving is actually, and seeing somebody off, whether you bury them or have their ashes, is part of the process that gives you closure. So these wounds have just been reopened for people who have no idea. And now I imagine, even if they're repatriated with the body of their loved one and go through it, they'll still live with the doubts about what they get into.
And I think this affects every undertaker in the land now, because the whole thing, Norman, is it's given, when someone passes, come to us, we understand, trust in us. I was watching an advert for another funeral undertakers last night. This has nothing to do with them, but who knows if it has or not, because has it just turned into some sort of conveyor belt business that it doesn't matter if we're selling baked beans or disposing of bodies here, just get them in, get them processed, and off we go.
I think the issue here is, I agree with Rennie, this is horrific, but the issue here is that if people now no longer can trust undertakers as a consequence of this story, is that really my relative? Is that really my friend? Are these his or her ashes? If they are starting to ask those questions, that is pretty horrific. And actually, this is a very sensitive issue. I know back in my time as an MP, we had a particular controversy in my constituency where the council was testing headstones in cemeteries to make sure they didn't fall over, and they knocked a whole lot over. I mean, the outrage that came out from that was enormous. It was the most sensitive issue for the council in 20 years.
I think it's interesting. I think we were talking about this yesterday, that particularly in contrast to my culture in Ireland, where death is much more revered, or people are more sensitive to it, and they talk about it all the time, and people die and are buried within 3 days in Ireland. So here it takes a month or so. There is, Renee, and you will have seen this professionally as well, there seems to be a different attitude in England in particular about how death is handled And I'm not sure if that contributes to the fact that nobody cares anyway. You stick the body in here for a month, who cares what happens to it after a month?
I think that in the UK, we don't tend to celebrate when somebody dies so much. We don't have a wake, excuse me, where we actually celebrate their life and their passing. We tend to be much more closed about talking about it. It's an issue that people find difficult to traverse. So you're right. That also then brings a screen over it and allows something like this perhaps to happen, and it must never happen again.
Absolutely. Norman, latest twist in the Rwanda story is now the government's going to be offering £3,000 sweeteners for people to leave voluntarily. Now, haven't we had huge arguments about pull factors and, you know, not wanting to allow women through because that could be a pull factor, pregnant women and the like? Offering £3,000 is surely going to be a pull factor in this.
Well, I think it is a pull factor, but also it's just, I have to say, it's a bit of a joke in a sense. I mean, they were so desperate to get flights off to Rwanda. They're trying everything they can do to get these flights off the ground. And now we're going to have voluntary flights where people are offered money. They don't have to go, but if they want to go, they get some money. So the government can say, hey, we got flights off to Rwanda, and what they won't say necessarily, or they won't give attention to, is the fact that there's a whole lot of public money gone into paying people to go. The other issue is slightly strange, is that these are people who have been refused leave to stay in this country.
So they shouldn't be allowed to stay regardless of whether they volunteer to go.
No, that's true. But also they can't be returned to their own country because they come from places like Afghanistan, which are war-torn. So in a sense, I don't know these particular cases, but it seems to me that they're the sort of people who probably would qualify to be given status here because they genuinely are refugees.
Yeah, it's true. It's an interesting point, isn't it? That doesn't seem to make sense. I mean, we need more detail. But once again, it's our money, taxpayers' money, being thrown away hand over fist over a scheme that's never worked.
Is it being thrown away? Or, you know, these people still have to be housed, they still have to be jailed, they still have to be fed, whatever. And they're just saying, look, here's £3,000 or £5,000 or whatever it is, take it, and it'll be cheap for us. Get out, take it, please. Go to Rwanda.
What's the betting that people will take it, go away, and then come back again?
Small boat, yeah. I think there are people living in the UK currently who would like £3,000 to go somewhere.
Pay for a nice holiday.
Right.
Oh dear.
Let's talk about puberty blockers.
This is
children
a good story.
who want to change gender will no longer be prescribed this on the NHS.
For the first time in at least 5 years since Stonewall and Mermaids infiltrated all of our care pathways, has sense returned to the room, and we have put the safeguarding of children at the top of above ideology, because that's what was going on. All of the decent evidence that is out there says that these children who have multiple things going on, they're depressed, they have autism, they have anxiety, they have ADHD. All of these children, if left to go through puberty, between 73% and 93% of them will settle quite happily with their biological sex. Many of them will be gay, so they won't be convinced that actually they're not gay, they're just in the wrong body, and that is going on. I have watched it in my practice. So this is the best piece of news that you could get today. I think as a mother, as a doctor and as society, leave our children alone.
So you don't think you're extending any suffering that children like this may be going through already?
Well, all of the evidence shows, Eamonn, that after transitioning, and there's good data recently from Sweden and Denmark, so before transitioning, these children are already disturbed mentally with all of their angst. After transitioning, they are 7 times more likely to commit suicide. Helping them change sex isn't working. What we need to do is help them get to the bottom of their demons.
Am I right in thinking about 70% of those who do change sex then regret it and want to change back, and that the evidence is, as you say, if they can get support and all the help they need through those difficult teenage years, they may well come out the other side and think, actually, I'm happy with my sex?
Most of them will come out the other side. What's worrying, however, and this is what the pressure groups and activists know, is if you do get them on puberty blockers, 98% of them will go on to take cross-sex hormones that cause infertility, damage your bones, cause pain. We've seen a 7-point drop in IQ in some studies when they've gone on to these hormones. These are not benign. And already Mermaids are out this morning saying this is a travesty, we must help our children. They are not helping our children. This is helping our children. And I applaud this, and long may it last.
Norman, table manners. Whatever table manners mean, My wife is particularly obsessed with table manners because she's got this hearing disorder where her hearing is sensitised, so she will hear slurping, chomping.
Shouldn't be slurping or chomping at the table, Eamonn, and maybe that's the problem.
I don't believe I am.
Okay.
But she hears it. She hears it.
Just saying.
But table manners in general. For instance, I don't believe the Americans have table manners at all. I was brought up watching cowboy films and whatever, and they only ever eat with one fork.
Oh, they do. That's perfectly true. Dare I say that my father-in-law and mother-in-law were Americans, and the way they eat is quite different to how I was brought up to, and it was one fork in the right hand.
Yeah.
When I first saw them, I actually genuinely said, trying to be helpful, oh, is there an issue with your left hand? And actually, no, there wasn't an issue with the left hand, that's the way they eat. But look, I mean, table manners generally, if people want to sit on the sofa and watch television with a takeaway, that's fine, there's not an issue about that. What the issue, I think, is, first of all, families aren't eating together as much as they used to. Yes. And I think the idea of a family sitting around at the same time having a meal is quite a good thing to do, it's unifying. And secondly, when they do sit around the table together, they ought to behave, I think, in a particular way. I'm quite old-fashioned in this. You know, I don't think it's appropriate for someone to start eating a meal before everybody else has got their food in front of them.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more.
For example.
Especially if the person who's cooking it is still on their feet.
Exactly.
And I say this as somebody who's usually dishing up, anyway.
And nor is it right to use mobile phones at the table.
Absolutely.
You know.
But Norman, you were talking about eating a takeaway, watching TV and whatever. Absolutely agree with you. It's perfectly normal. But I remember in the 70s, it was like a total sin if any of us were to take a meal. You just wouldn't have done it. You wouldn't have taken food to watch the television with. That just wasn't done.
Well, it depends whether you're on... For my money, it's whether you're on your own or whether you're part of the family. Right. Clearly, if the family's at the table eating a meal, you should be with the family. But if you just come back from work and you want to take away, then what's wrong with that?
The second point I just want to say about this, when you look at... If you go to a new house and you look at a show home or whatever it is, they don't have dining rooms anymore. Right.
Is that right?
That is regarded as superfluous, a luxury. People don't use
People would
them
rather have a
anymore.
boot room or a big utility than
or
dining room.
bigger sitting room or whatever it happens to be. But dining rooms are like, if there's any eating area, it's at a bar in a kitchen.
But can I just make the point? I don't like eating off a tray, balancing my food. Or if there was a takeaway and it's a Saturday night treat, I'm thinking my cushions, my carpet. I'd much rather sit at a table where there's a wooden floor and I can make a mess.
Yeah.
You know, I don't get any pleasure from sitting in front of the TV.
And I mean, I do think that we need to teach our children table manners because they will be going out into the wide world. And I agree with you, Norman. Nobody should start on a table until everybody has their meal, but also mobile phones. So I think it's difficult for parents when they're all working. So when we have a night in the week where we're both home, like last night we did this, I prepare, my daughter sets the table because Daddy's home early. I cook, she helps me. We then all sit down together. Nobody starts their meal until we've all got our drinks and we cheers each other and say, have a nice meal. And mobile phones, well, my daughter doesn't have mobile phones anyway, would never come near the table. But also, she's only 5. She sometimes gets up and does a handstand and we remind her that we're having dinner and you need to come and sit down. You know, so I think it's good parenting. It also enables people to go over the day together. 100%. And that's good for children to connect with their parents. They actually want to do that. A child would rather be chatting with its parents than sitting glued to a screen. But parents often don't think that's the case.
Yes, I agree with you about a child may rather be doing one than the other. But the thing is, the child doesn't really know it would rather be talking to the parents.
So you have to help it along, you know, the right route. And our daughter loves our evenings where we all set the table together, we clear up together. It's just part of teamwork. And, you know, we have to get back to some parenting, I think. We can't let screens parent children.
How's your daughter getting on with knife and fork? Because my recently 6-year-old daughter still wants to use her fingers.
She's probably American.
It's driving me crazy.
Mine actually would like us to feed her. She thinks she's a princess.
Probably occasionally will resort to, Mummy, I don't want any more, and then if I shovel it in, it goes in. Oh, dear, we'll get there.
What did you have for tea last night?
So we had Greek lemon chicken with roast potatoes and herbs, roasted courgettes and some broccoli.
Lovely.
Wouldn't mind coming to your house. That's quite good.
All organic.
Very good. We are waiting on the government minister, Kevin Hollinrake, and I believe he is ready, Postal Affairs Minister.
Not quite ready. So that's OK. We've got time for another story in the meantime. Should we talk about unemployment? Oh, well, let's go to a story... Oh, no, hang on. I'm trying to think of a story to get Norman involved in, but you can join in any of these, can't you?
I'll join in.
We'll talk about unemployment. These figures came out around this time yesterday, and actually it's under 25s seem to be significantly affected by these latest job figures. Or job
yes, according to...
Minister's good to go. Minister's
Hold your
good to
horses.
go.
We'll come back to that. Apologies.
Yeah. Kevin Hollinrick, let's go to Kevin Hollinrick. A big day for him, Postal Affairs Minister. Mr. Hollinrick, good morning to you. Can you hear us okay? Good. Wrongful post office convictions.
The ear thing's coming out a little bit, but I can hear you fine.
Well, you put your you keep your finger on that. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'll keep my finger if you don't mind, Eamonn.
Good lad, good lad. So what is going to happen today with the postmasters?
Well, we're introducing legislation today, so it means we'll quash convictions of hundreds of postmasters by July of this year, which has been long overdue, of course, but that will open the door to compensation for those people. We hope to start paying compensation to those people by August of this year. So a very important moment. It's unprecedented in parliamentary history that we're quashing those convictions in this way, but it's absolutely the right thing to do. People have waited far too long to have their names cleared and to receive compensation.
We're speaking to a number of those victims on the programme this morning who will no doubt be pleased to hear this is finally happening. Just reassure us, there is a chance that some convictions of people who are actually guilty of crimes could now be exonerated as part of this sweep through of this emergency legislation.
Yeah, we're very clear about that. It's for us to go through every case, every file, every document would take years, we think. So we'd rather than do that, we think the right thing to do is to exonerate everybody. We know the vast majority of these people are innocent, so better to let 10 guilty people go free, as was said, rather than one innocent people be prosecuted and condemned. So it's the right thing to do. We will put some mitigations in place to try and prevent people who are guilty getting compensation or getting redress, but nevertheless we do see that as a risk, but we think this is the least worst option, and it's right we move quickly, otherwise we'd take years to be exonerating these innocent people and to be compensating them.
Well, Kevin, you used a word there, quickly, and I think in many political dilemmas this is a big issue and it's an important issue, and we look at this these so-called racist remarks by the Conservative donor towards Diane Abbott, which have come to light. I just want to ask you, my friend, there is a statement, it's from Downing Street, but it is not from the Prime Minister. Why is it not from the Prime Minister? I don't understand. If he gets a spokesperson to speak on his behalf, why does he not just say, "This is my view"?
Well, I think if there's a spokesman for the Prime Minister, and that is his view. I mean, I don't think he would contradict his own spokesperson, so I think you can take it that is his view. He said very clearly that what these comments were racist and wrong. But also he's pointed out, quite rightly, that this is the most diverse cabinet in history. We are not a racist party. We don't condone that kind of racist language. And the gentleman himself has apologised. But I think you can take it from the fact it is his spokesman that those are the Prime Minister's clear views.
I mean, you say his clear views. It took him all day to come out with them. I can think of 10 million reasons why it took him so long. And he just looks incredibly weak, pipped to the post by Kemi Badenoch, who wasn't afraid to call it out.
Well, so Kemi was very clear in terms of how she regarded this language. I think it's very clear we shouldn't judge people's character by their skin colour. It's absolutely the wrong thing to say. It is a racist language, and we don't condone it at all. The gentleman's apologised, and I think we should move on from what was the wrong thing to say in a private conversation.
Well, you're moving on, and there's so much to move on into, Kevin. What would you say to other post office officials who are waiting for deliberation on their particular cases and what lies ahead? What is your message as we move ahead on this?
I my message is you've waited too long. We apologise for that. We apologise what's happened to you, but we are moving forward much more quickly in terms of paying compensation. The other part of our announcement today is that people who went through the original scheme, the Horizon Shortfall scheme, are getting a minimum of £75,000. So everybody whose compensation has been paid thus far, and some people...
Apologies to interrupt. We're out of time. Kevin Hollenrake, appreciate it. Thanks very much. Here's the forecast.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update. Heavy rain will persist across north and western areas through today and into Thursday, in fact, whereas in the east it will be much drier, brighter, and for everyone it's going to be feeling much milder through the rest of the week. But very heavy rain will persist for parts of North Wales, the Lake District, southern areas of Scotland as well, particularly Dumfries and Galloway seeing the heaviest of the rainfall. Further north it should stay largely dry apart from some very blustery showers. It will be very windy across northern Scotland. Gale force winds are expected, but in the south and east it's going to be a dry afternoon, breezy but still very mild with highs of 15 or 16 degrees if we do see any breaks in the cloud. Through tonight the rain is going to persist in similar areas, so it will stay very wet and overcast across North Wales and many northern areas of England, particularly across western coasts here, and we will see some outbreaks of rain moving into the southwest by Thursday morning. It should stay dry though in the far north and in the southeast, and for everyone it's going to be another very mild start to the day tomorrow. The rain will continue to push into northern areas, but it will shift slowly but surely further north into the central belt. Some more northern areas of Scotland seeing some rain later on in the day. We'll continue to see showers breaking out across southern areas of Wales, the southwest as well. These could turn quite heavy and be blustery too. But again, the far southeast should stay dry and bright, and we could see highs of 17 degrees. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News. Every Wednesday we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
We've got cash, treats and a spring shopping spree to be won in a great British giveaway. You could win an amazing £12,345 in tax-free cash. Plus there's a further £500 of shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. We'll also give you a gadget package to use in your garden this spring. That includes a games console, a pizza oven and a portable smart speaker, so you can listen to GB News on the go. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GB WIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
From 10 a.m. every Saturday, we want to make you think and we want to make you laugh.
So we will give you all the top stories.
Now we start with a story that has shocked the nation this week.
But we're also going to make it light and fun and bring some entertainment in to make your Saturday morning nice and restful.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good morning. It is 7 o'clock. It's Wednesday, the 13th of March, and you're tuned into Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Thanks for your company. We're online, we're on radio, we're on television, we're on your device. Play GB News, just ask that. Headlines this morning.
What took so long? Pressure on the PM as another Tory racism row emerges over a donor's remarks over Diane Abbott.
Will it be victory for the sub-postmaster's government to introduce new legislation today to quash convictions?
Keir Starmer promises Dame Esther Rantzen there will be a vote on assisted dying should he win the next election.
It's Trump v Biden again. The rematch is set for November as both become the nominees of their parties.
Pop star Lily Allen has claimed that having children totally ruined her music career and that mothers can't have it all. Do you agree? We'll be debating it at 7:20.
And after 8 o'clock, we'll be speaking to Anne Diamond about Safer Sleep Week, raising awareness about cot death following her own personal tragedy on that front.
And in sport, nervy night in North London. Goalkeeper David Raya, the hero, as Arsenal scraped past Porto on penalties, and I'm very pleased for them. Novak Djokovic loses to the world number 123, and it's not called Ladies' Day at Cheltenham anymore. It's Style Wednesday. And ex-jockey Paddy Aspel joins us again, hopefully with better tips than I offered up yesterday.
Well, what will he be wearing?
Oh, who knows?
That's the question.
Who knows?
Morning, there'll be very heavy rain across northwestern areas through the next few days, but elsewhere it'll be very mild. Find out all the details with me a little later on.
Some breaking news to bring you in the last few moments, and we're just hearing from the Office for National Statistics that GDP grew in January, up 0.2%, which means we're out of recession, doesn't it? Does that mean that? We'll find out. We'll do some analysis on all of that. But this will be good news and very welcome because it's been a very embarrassing 24 hours for number 10.
Where's Liam Halligan when you need him? Right,
Indeed.
OK. More on that as the programme progresses. Racist and wrong, that's how a spokesperson for the Prime Minister has branded the comments made by a major Conservative donor about the MP Diane Abbott. She's the first black woman elected to Parliament.
Well, the comments from Frank Hester, a large donor to the Conservative Party, told a meeting that Diane Abbott should be shot and that she made him want to hate all black women. He has since apologised for his language.
Apparently he's the biggest ever donor to the Conservative Party, yeah. This is in the lack of immediate condemnation of his remarks, which are now causing the Prime Minister a bit of a headache. Let's find out just how big that headache is. James Price joins us now, political commentator. What do you think, James?
Maybe not the biggest ever headache, given the long to-do list of Britain's woes, although it's great to hear that about the GDP stats being out of recession. GDP at 0.2%. It's not exactly the 7.4% that Ronald Reagan got the United States going in the 1980s, but we'll definitely take whatever we can get right now. Look, you have to caveat this, as the Minister said just then, that this is obviously, these are stupid things to have said. Whether these things count as racist, I think the way that the law works is that if the person who's the victim thinks they were, then they were, and Diane Abbott has come out and said that. I wonder if she thinks that goes the same way for the Jewish people and Irish people that she said can't be the victims of racism. They were the comments that had Diane Abbott lose the Labour whip herself almost a year ago. It's just another unfortunate, unenforced error from the Tories when, we've got so many difficult things the country should really be focusing on.
Yeah, and is that a sign of weakness from the Prime Minister? Not only that it took him so long to say what he wanted to say, that he was pipped to the post by someone who's openly looking, possibly, to take over from him after the election if he loses, and that is Kemi Badenoch. And also the fact that he's having these meetings behind closed doors with Sir Graham Brady of the ever-powerful and influential 1922 committee, who are responsible for moving Prime Ministers on when they've had enough.
It's a big shopping list of tasks for Rishi, isn't it? Is it weakness? I mean, I'd like to think that he's said on the steps of Downing Street that he's trying to bring accountability and decency and all these things, and I think that's true at a personal level. Maybe he just thought that he could sit down in his office and work on this long list of problems, of our productivity problems, of the war we've got in Europe, of the energy problems that we're facing, all these difficult things, and thought that he could just leave this thing to rumble out. Unfortunately, these things are almost never the case. It's almost always better to head these things off at the pass, to use the kind of Wild West cliche, and then just be able to get on with it so this story wouldn't rumble through. But I almost like the idea that we could just say, look, stupid, dumb, let's move on, let's talk about something substantive, but the world never
Well,
works like that.
it raises the question about judgment, doesn't it? We had Norman Baker on, obviously former Liberal Democrat minister in the coalition government with the Conservatives, and he was saying that he couldn't call it racism, or was afraid to call it out because he didn't want to alienate a wing of his party, who we, of course, saw embroiled in a racism row 2 weeks ago. Do you think that's fair?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, I think that we'll talk about different wings of the parties and all these things, and phrases like right wing, left wing get bandied around. I'm not sure how much they actually mean, because you've got some people on the right of the Conservative Party who are economically right wing, believe in a small state and pro-business. They're also the same people that happen to be from ethnic minority backgrounds. So you're saying that they're going to also be somehow racist for these things? No. My old boss, very, very sound on economic issues.
Nadeem Zahawi, for those who don't know. Yeah.
Born in Baghdad, came over here, very, very sound on economic issues, loves Britain, all these things. So these kind of labels don't really help anybody on these things. And as the Minister said just there, not to be too much of a toady, but it is the most diverse cabinet we've ever had. The Prime Minister is a Hindu man from an Indian background. This idea that the Conservative Party is full of racists is just completely for the birds.
No, but many people would say that was all the more reason that he should have called it out swiftly. But let's park that, shall we? Look, we've talked about the good news on the economy. We are back into growth, albeit in a small percentage, 0.2% growth. I don't know if that actually means we're out of recession. Does it need to be a number of months in succession?
I think we're back out now.
We are. OK, well, the Chancellor obviously said he was prepared for us to go into recession if it meant that it would help tackle inflation and as long as it was short and shallow. So he'll be thinking this is the plan working.
Well, to an extent, absolutely. I think that the bit that's frustrating about these things, and obviously there was the Liz Truss time, which could have been so brilliant and was handled so poorly and scared markets and all the rest of it. But I think it's undeniable that the British economy needs a lot of different reforms to it. I think what we're staring down the barrel of is something like what we saw in the 1970s. There you had inflation absolutely running away, trade union power that was really controlling Britain, and these turned into this kind of vicious cycle of problems. I think the problem we've got here now is we can't get anything built. It's so difficult to get infrastructure going. It's so difficult for businesses to get going. There's so much regulation on one side of the ledger that says we have to gold plate green issues and diversity issues and all these things, and no one really taking account of, well, we need some growth going to pay for things. People are getting older, costs are always rising, but we're not doing that kind of business-friendly environment now we're outside the EU that we really could do, and frankly, we really need to do to pay for the schools and hospitals that people care about so much.
OK, fascinating to get your take. James Price, former Chief of Staff to Nadeem Zahawi, thank you very much indeed.
The time is 7:07. A very good morning to you. The post office scandal. More on that today. The government will introduce a new bill set to overturn all wrongful conditions in the scandal. The Prime Minister has said the bill will mark an important step in finally clearing the names of hundreds of wronged branch managers.
Well, joining us now is one of those victims, the former postmaster, Christopher Head. Good morning to you, Christopher. I don't know what year you got your wrongful conviction, but this has been hanging over your head for an incredibly long time. How pleased are you to see this legislation being brought forward today, which will overturn that conviction?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't actually one of the ones convicted. I mean, I had a criminal investigation and also a civil proceedings against me. Obviously, I've been a long-time campaigner since I lost my office in 2015. And look, it's just important that obviously this legislation is, brought before Parliament and obviously passed before the summer recess, as is the aim, because we have, up to maybe 900 people with these convictions hanging over them, and they need to be able to rebuild their lives and move on and access the compensation that they are that they deserve.
How much faith do you have that they will be getting the compensation that they deserve? I mean, the government have said, I think, as soon as it may, around 150,000 or so will be apportioned to most of those victims. But obviously that doesn't come anywhere close to what a lot of people are owed or entitled to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is something that I've been campaigning on for a very, very long time. Obviously, that's just the interim payment. They can, take the £600,000 fixed sum award. But again, even that amount for a lot of people, that people who've lost their homes, that they've lost their business, that they've had their reputations trashed. Some people are no longer with us. That will not be adequate in terms of for their financial recompense. And it's important that we make sure that these people that go down the full assessment route to have their full damages assessed, that obviously they're given adequate interim payments while that is delivered, because I said that these people have been through so much and they're in such perilous positions right now.
So a lot of people will look at today and they'll say, well, that's good, this is the end of the matter. Is it the end of the matter?
I don't think so. I think it maybe be the beginning of the end, let's call it. I mean, but I have actually said that many times since I think 2019 when we had the court case. So, like I said, it's a start. We need to get them convictions quashed, get that money delivered to them. I know that in the announcement they're going to reassess the 2,000 plus claims that Post Office have already gone through their compensation scheme and potentially top them up. So that's another thing. Give us an insight into your life and how it has changed. I mean, what do you do now? Are you still a post office manager? Would you be allowed to be? What is the situation with your life? I don't actually know whether I would be allowed to be or not. That's actually that's a pretty good question. I ran the post office from when I was 18, the youngest postmaster in the country, back in 2006. And since 2015, obviously, I battled for 5 years with lawyers over the civil claim. And then obviously when that was formally dropped, I'd left the country originally because I couldn't find work in the UK because of everything that had gone on. Then I returned back to the UK, did some work there as well. And then I've campaigned continuously ever since with my MP, Kate Osborne. And that said, it's just been non-stop. I mean, if you see my email inbox and my sent box, it is just continuous emails backwards and forwards to the Compensation Advisory Board, to ministers, to MPs, to try and push everything forward so that everybody gets the justice that they deserve.
And this ITV drama, how much of a game changer was that?
It was huge. I mean, look, I think things were happening in the background, but this really propelled it to a new level. And I think because the general public could resonate and understand the suffering that not only the postmasters but actually their families went through, and it just set like a light underneath all the political action that's gone on since. And it actually shows, I think, what can be done when there's public outrage and pressure on the politicians, because things happened within days when we've been waiting years for things to happen. So it's been very, very important, and we just need to keep that pressure up until this is over.
Good man. Well, may it be over soon. Thank you very much indeed. Very good talking to you this morning. We'll leave it there. Thank you. The time now 12 minutes past 7.
Let's take a look at some of the other stories making the headlines today. And the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, has promised a vote on assisted dying if his party wins the next election. He's been speaking to Dame Esther Ranson, who's recently revealed that she has joined Dignitas, the assisted dying clinic in Switzerland. Starmer admitted he's personally in favour of changing the law.
The man and woman arrested in connection into the investigation into a funeral home in Hull have both been bailed. A total of 35 bodies and what police have called a quantity of suspected human ashes have been moved to another mortuary after police received over 1,000 phone complaints. And we want to hear from you if you've got a complaint, if you've got a concern, if you've got a view on all of this. gbviews@gbnews.com.
To America, and it's officially going to be a 2024 rematch between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Both have now passed the delegate threshold and secured the nominations for the Republican and Democratic Party overnight. These will be made official this summer at their party conventions.
And returning to some breaking news in this hour on the economic front, the economy grew by 0.2% in January, says the Office for National Statistics.
Yeah, and responding to these figures, we've just heard in the last few minutes from the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt. He said that whilst the last few years have been tough, today's numbers show we're making progress in growing the economy.
I got to park outside Jeremy Hunt's front door.
That's very cool. Talk about parking your tanks on the lawn.
Yeah. Well, you see, it's because of my disabilities now
well,
that I have.
You get perks with that.
You get a blue pass, and so I was the only car in Downing Street.
I like it.
So I had to nip out and take a picture of it.
Oh, quite right. And where can we find this picture?
Oh, no, don't.
Come on,
don't
let's get this picture on the show this morning. I think it's worthy of it. It's very James Bond-esque. I mean, you talk about people confusing you with George Clooney. This is very 007. Don't roll your eyes.
I tell you what, I was looking for pictures this morning because we were talking about Cheltenham being Style Wednesday.
Yeah.
And I was looking for pictures when we went.
I've sent some to Cooper this morning.
Oh, have you? Oh,
yeah.
you've got them. Oh, good, good, because I couldn't find them on mine.
It was a very wet
You must have stolen
March
them.
day. Oh, look at us there.
Yeah, but you wouldn't, honestly, folks, I do want to tell you, you would not believe how wet
Look how delighted I am.
Yeah.
We didn't have to walk far in the rain, really, but that was inside the box. That was dry, luckily.
Yeah.
But we both had our hats on.
I got a picture of Zara as well, you know.
Well, we need to find that.
It's very nice, but no. Somebody said, "Oh, Eamonn, yeah, I'll take it off you." And the amount of people who literally cannot use a camera on a phone. So I thought I had a picture of her, but I hadn't got a picture of her, so they framed it, but they didn't press the button right and whatever.
So disappointing.
What do you think of my hat?
I think it suits you, and I quite like a trilby on me as well.
But you would have preferred if it was drier.
Yeah, we would have preferred it if it was drier. But anyway, to all of those going, send us your frocks, send us what you're wearing. It's not called Ladies' Day anymore, it's Style Wednesday. Speaking of which, sorry, I know we're probably a bit short on time, but yesterday we did a video call, you and I. Well, you know me. Anyway, you were wearing your glasses during the call, and I actually thought they really suit you. I think you should maybe wear them more. Have you ever thought about getting some without any, just fashion glasses?
Just fashion glasses.
Style Wednesday.
Yeah. They suit you.
Well, I could do the Miss Moneypenny or whatever. Anyway, just a thought. Has anyone told you that before, that you suit glasses?
Has anybody told you how clean they are?
Yeah, they're filthy. I didn't want to say. Someone needs to do you a favour.
How do you do it? I mean, we wear makeup on our face. You touch your face, you touch your glasses.
How does anyone do it? This is how you do it, because every time we put down your glasses, you put them down like that. That's how they get dirty.
Yeah.
You need to put them lovingly like that, and then give them a nice huff and a puff.
When they're in my pocket or something, that's when you touch the glass bit. That's when it all goes wrong. Anyway, let me tell you, Annie Shuttleworth, she has your weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update. Heavy rain will persist across north and western areas through today and into Thursday, in fact, whereas in the east it will be much drier, brighter, and for everyone it's going to be feeling much milder through the rest of the week. But very heavy rain will persist for parts of North Wales, the Lake District, southern areas of Scotland as well, particularly Dumfries and Galloway seeing the heaviest of the rainfall. Further north it should stay largely dry, apart from some very blustery showers. It will be very windy across northern Scotland. Gale force winds are expected, but in the south and east it's going to be a dry afternoon, breezy but still very mild with highs of 15 or 16 degrees if we do see any breaks in the cloud. Through tonight the rain is going to persist in similar areas, so it will stay very wet and overcast across North Wales and many northern areas of England, particularly across western coasts here, and we will see some outbreaks of rain moving into the southwest by Thursday morning. It should stay dry though in the far north and in the southeast, and for everyone it's going to be another very mild start to the day tomorrow. The rain will continue to push into northern areas, but it will shift slowly but surely further north into the central belt. Some more northern areas of Scotland seeing some rain later on in the day. We'll continue to see showers breaking out across southern areas of Wales, the southwest as well. These could turn quite heavy and be blustery too. But again, the far southeast should stay dry and bright, and we could see highs of 17 degrees. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Coming up for our monthly spring Great British giveaway. This is a real goodie, so if you're not aware of it, or if you haven't just got round to entering, we would encourage you to think differently this morning.
Yes, because you can earn £5,000. That's £12,345 in tax-free cash. Here's how you could be the winner.
Want to be a winner?
You've won £18,000.
Oh, flipping heck. I don't know what to say.
Enter our massive spring giveaway with 3 big seasonal prizes to be won. There's £12,345 in tax-free cash to give your finances a spring boost. We'll also send you on a shopping spree with £500 worth of vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. You'll also get a garden gadget package. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, Text GB Win to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
There's a lovely place called Burton on the Water. Have you ever been to Burton on the Water?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, well, they're going to ban coaches from coming in.
Good idea.
If you say, let's just say you're infirmed like me, or you're 84 years of age and you can't
don't
walk
go in
too far.
coaches.
No, but I could say I did say I had a day out.
No, but these beautiful little honey sweet chocolate box Cotswold villages, which have tiny little bridges over tiny little brooks and babbling brooks, and then they have these thumping great coaches full of tourists.
But that brings the tourists to keep the economy alive.
Well, they'll just have to be creative and think of better ways, minibuses or something. You know, smaller groups.
That's like the way they won't allow big cruise ships into Venice.
Yes, quite right.
Things like that. So what do you think about this? And if you live in Burton, or if you want to visit Burton, does this...
Although I would always pronounce it Borton on the Water. Just so you know. It was on my patch.
Okay.
I used to cover the West Country.
I'm going to sit and pull up you on every pronunciation.
Sorry, yeah, go on.
Economics.
No, I know, I don't know why I say it. I don't know.
You say economics, don't you?
It's envelope, potato, potato.
There we are, Burton on the Water.
Borton on the water.
So anyway, here's a story of a lady who would be dropped off.
Yeah.
She's nearly 90.
Yeah.
Dropped off in the outskirts of Burton on the Water, and would then have to walk for 30 minutes to get to the village centre. So that's an all-round walk of 1 hour. But it's nice. It is nice.
It's gorgeous. I do love it around there.
Okay.
Still to come, we're going to be talking about Lily Allen. She said something quite controversial yesterday. If you're a mum, perhaps this will resonate with you. She said her kids wrecked her career. Oh dear. Can women have it all? We'll be debating that next.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Eamonn was just showing me a picture of him and Lily Allen. There's no end to the pictures this morning. I want to get that one on screen. We're going to get Downing Street up as well. Was this before or after she ruined her career by having some children?
Well, and that is the question, because she's saying, you know, as a mum, you just can't have it all. Kids get in the way. So she's kicked off a whole debate this week, heading out at the notion that mums can't do it. No, you see, you're an interesting one.
Don't ask me. I don't think women can have it all, put it out there. I think it's really hard. Anyway, in a discussion on the Radio Times podcast, Allen admitted having children had ruined her pop star potential. Let's talk about this with parenting specialist Roma Norris, who thinks they can't, and mother of 2 and full-time worker Kirsty Ketley, who thinks they can. A very warm welcome to you both. And, you know, my opinion is kind of irrelevant, really. I'm much more interested to hear why, Kirsty, you think that parents can have it all and that Lily Allen is wrong. By parents, I mean mothers.
Firstly, I think that, you know, blaming a kid for her career ending is quite harsh.
Quite agree.
I don't think her kids need that guilt that their mum didn't carry on her pop career because of them. But I also feel that women, yes, you can have it all, in the sense of having a career and having a family, but you need things in place to enable you to have that. And obviously, our childcare system is completely up the swanny, shall we say, at the moment. It's stopping a lot of women getting back to work. Flexible working isn't happening for many women, and it's keeping them out of the workplace. But equally, there are a lot of women who run their own businesses now, who are very successful, who are finding ways around that. There are a lot of dads now taking on parental responsibilities. You know, in an hour's time when I do the school run, there'll be plenty of dads doing the school run these days, you know. There's a lot more grandparents taking on the childcare responsibilities. So it is possible, but you need to have all these things in place to make it successful.
And you speak as a mum of 2. How old are your youngsters, Kirsty?
So my eldest is almost 11 and my youngest is 7.
OK. And do you think it has been worse than it is now, or do you expect it to get worser?
I don't think it's necessarily worse. I think it depends on your career, it depends on your job, it depends what you want to do in life. And I think, you know, having it all means different things to different people. You know, there are plenty of mums who choose, like Lily Allen, to stay at home. And she's in a very privileged position where she can choose to do that. Lots of mums have to go back to work. They have no choice. And they can then feel guilty for going back to work because they feel like they're not living up to the expectations that other people, you know, say you should be as a mother.
Well, every time Isabel works, she says she don't make this about her, but it is about you, because people watch you and they see you. How does she get up this time in the morning and do this? But how many times she will say to me, oh, I'm not there for the kids, or I feel as if I'm not there for the kids, which she is. She does everything.
My number one job, 100%, is mum. And everything else I do is to enable their life, really. My career is secondary to my children. I know a lot of mothers would feel the same. I mean, what do you think, Kirsty? Can you have it all? Or is
no, Roma. We've got to ask Roma.
Sorry, Roma, we've done Kirsty.
Roma, because the thing is, you're a parenting specialist as well, so you speak with a lot of authority on this, but still, and Kirsty was saying the organisation, if the organisation is there, you can maybe do something about it, but you speak as someone who knows what the organisation is involved, and you still say,
Well, the thing is, parents are already an oppressed group, because if you think about it, you do a day's work and you go home and you pull another maybe up to 8 hours with your kids. Your childless colleague goes home and watches Netflix, and you both get paid the same amount. So if you add to this being a woman, you're probably more likely to be doing the lion's share of the child rearing. You're probably carrying the mental load, the domestic load, the emotional load, and the social load for the entire family. Maybe doing similar unseen things at work, Particularly in high-powered environments, women are bending themselves into pretzels to keep up with their male peers. This is going to take its toll on mothers.
But look at a mother like Lily Allen. I mean, in fairness, you're talking about someone who's mostly they'll rehearse during the day, they'll record during the day, and they perform at night. And not only do they perform at night, they perform in Aberdeen, they perform in Plymouth, they perform in Paris, Berlin, whatever. So, you know, she gets it in every direction. I mean, that really must be tough, if at all possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, she's under a lot of pressure. I'm sure her schedule is demanding and perhaps not that flexible. And I think, like Kirsty said, you know, it's not always a choice. Some women have to work. And of course, there are 1,000 ways to raise a good family. I think rather than the sort of practicals that we need to put in place, if you are a career woman, you want to be thinking about how to connect really effectively with your kids so that the short windows of time that you have with them really count, and also undoing the unhealthy patterns that you inherited from your own childhood so that you can be more present and more available when you are with them. Yeah.
Kirsty, just in all of this, we talk a lot about, you know, can women have it all? What about the kids? I feel like the kids always come secondary. You know, what is best for children, really? Is it for them to have regular contact with one of their parents? Or is it best, you know, for their parents to be earning a good wage so that they can have all the things that they want? I mean, these are the dilemmas that parents grapple with all the time. Probably children at the end of the day would say they just want their mum or their dad.
Yeah, they want to spend time with their parents, for sure. I mean, you know, you're a mother yourself, you know what it's like. You know, kids are very good at pulling on the heartstrings and making you feel guilty pretty much all the time about something. You know, even doing this call this morning, it's like, what? At that time in the morning? You know, because I'm not there sorting out their breakfast with them or something at the moment, you know? But, you know, if I'm honest, I don't feel that guilty. But I think, you know, as mums, we do feel guilty all the time about everything. Whether we work, whether we don't work, we always feel guilty. And some of that is the pressures that you feel from everybody outside, the noise outside that comes in to make you feel that way. You know, you can scroll through social media and you'll read a post and you'll go, oh, that's made me feel really bad today. So it's kind of changing your mindset and having more of a can-do attitude rather than a can't-do attitude, and finding the times, as Rem said, you know, when you are with your children, to make it good quality time. You know, it doesn't have to be 24/7 with your children. As long as if you've got the weekends, you spend it doing stuff with them on that nice one-to-one. And like I say, more dads are taking on parental responsibilities. So does it matter if mum isn't there all the time, if dad's going to be there instead? Probably not. And I see that lots in my work. I work lots with dads as well as mums. I see it loads all the time. You know, dads are there, you know, doing their bit. The times are changing, I feel.
Well, continued success to both of you. I hope everything works out well and continues to work out well for you. Kirsty and Roma, thank you for your thoughts today. Thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
You'll get lots of people speaking in relation to that. I'm just very lucky. I was just sitting thinking, listening to the ladies there and just thinking of my parents, and I know what their jobs were and I know what their specific definition was, and I know it was my job to get on and fight with my brothers and play with them and do all sorts of things. And I look at it and I think there was no thought put into how we got through it, but we did it and we were very happy. And I don't know, I think it's when you start analysing things. My parents, I'm sure, didn't sit and analyse how much time they spent with each one of us. They just did. And the other thing we did was all this health and safety rubbish. My father had a carpet van and we were just bungled in the back of it. No seat belts, nothing else. And we had great time. There's nothing as fun as a roll of felt in the back carpet.
I'll bet, because the thing is you didn't need a seat belt, because if he falls up, you go straight into the carpet.
Straight into it. Right, we're going straight to Cheltenham.
We are. We're going to do that in a second, right? So we've got Arsenal, who went through in the Champions League, and we talk about my days in Cheltenham, that is, of course, Cheltenham. Cheltenham Festival Day 2, and our great friend Paddy Aspel, ex-jockey, is going to be with us, and we'll speak to him. Hopefully he has some tips for us as well.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Penalties. We're going to penalties in the sport this morning. Paul Coit, and we're referring to the Champions League last night. Arsenal now through to the quarterfinals for the first time in a million years.
That's right. It is million years.
And they did it by penalties.
I like penalties, don't you?
No.
Do you not?
No.
Why?
Because I find football nervous enough watching it and anxious enough, and I just think it can just go any way on penalties.
But that makes it great for me.
Do you ever take a penalty?
Have I taken a penalty? Yeah, I probably have done.
But like on a real football pitch, I did it at what was it, Highfield Road. It was like Coventry's old
Coventry City, yeah.
And they had Steve Ogrizovic, who was the Coventry keeper. Yeah. Dear God, it was impossible. I mean, out of 5, I hit the post twice. Ogrizovic saved one, and
you got lucky.
2.
Yeah. I mean, how many penalties did you have then?
5.
Oh, so you take 5?
Yeah.
So is this affecting your thoughts on penties?
Yes.
Is this what it is, isn't it?
I took them against Richard Keys, and then he beat me by penalty.
Right.
That was very annoying.
Hairy hand comes up and just plucks them. Anyway, let's David Raya. David Raya was the Steve Ogrizovic of last night. So it was 1-0 to Porto after the first leg.
Yeah.
Arsenal got it back to 1-1, and then going into the second half, you think it's going to be Arsenal. Arsenal are going to turn this round. But no, it went on because they're a wily old team, Porto. You've got someone like Pepe, who's 40, who's actually the same age as Captain Black, Mikel Arteta, the Arsenal manager. And so he's been playing for a long time. So you know, it was a hell of a game, went to penalties, Arsenal came through into the next round for the first time in 14 years.
And that draw will be made?
Friday.
Friday.
Okay,
my
two more
friend.
games today.
OK, thank you. We can say under starters' orders now. At Cheltenham, we've got Paddy Aspel, who was... well, you've retired how many years now, Paddy? Your wee bones hardly look formed, but yet you're in retirement land.
Good morning, guys. Yes, 5 years in retirement now. Seems a lot longer, to be honest. But yeah, no, I like to keep in shape, and it's all good.
So you went yesterday. What was that feeling like, knowing that you weren't going to ride a horse?
Yeah, you do get a little bit envious for sure. But you know, these are very tough, hardy guys. There's certain things I do miss about the job, but when I seen one or two of them coming back in with mud down their britches and maybe not looking so clever, I thought I was happy enough with my position then.
Paddy, let me ask you, what is the day like for a jockey at Cheltenham? You're a former winner there at Cheltenham. Is it something you could enjoy? Is it just another job? You turn up, you do your job and clear off? Does it feel special? What's it like? And what is the day for a jockey? What time do you turn up for a certain race and when do you go home?
Well, I suppose it all depends on your location, but a lot of the Irish trainers, they're already here. So the horses are on site. So the guys will be up here first thing in the morning. There's set times where horses have got to be on and then off the track for morning exercise. So yeah, always anything to do with race horses is an early start. Maybe not so bad in the winter because we haven't got the daylight hours, but it's generally a 6 or a 6:30 start. And yeah, it's excitement, but there's butterflies as well, but it's nervous excitement. These are big days, and you know, it's very, very competitive, but you also appreciate the fact that you're very lucky to be here as well.
But top of my list on race day would be, Paul and I are the same. Our bodies are our temples, and
yes,
we prepare for this presentation of a morning by an acute fasting regime.
Yeah, we have the weigh-in as well before we come into the studio, don't we? Yeah.
So what do you actually eat, if anything, on race day, my friend?
Well, I was quite lucky. Towards the end of my career, I did switch to ride on the flat full time, which meant an awful lot of weight restriction. But when I was riding over jumps, I could make the bottom weight easy, which was 10 stone. So eating for me was never a problem. But trust me, the black coffee and, well, maybe gone are the days that cigarettes, black coffee and cigarettes was the main stronghold of the diet for a lot of jockeys. But sports nutrition, the data that jockeys have nowadays, and recovery and looking after your body is really to the forefront nowadays. It's moved on, and thankfully it has an awful lot. But it's a difficult industry because some of these jump jockeys are big guys and they've got to make weight.
It'll be a long week. It'll be a long week.
Longer week for the horse, I think. but let's talk about how you found yesterday. It was a wet old day, but it's not Ladies' Day, Style Wednesday today. What are you looking forward to today, Paddy? You know where I'm heading. I'm heading towards some tips from you. But what can we look forward to at Cheltenham today?
Well, it was a wet start yesterday morning, to be fair. It was, but it cleared up and the rain stayed away all day in the end. But it was overnight and early morning where the track got a proper soaking. But as I mentioned, the rain did stay away and it brightened up and it was a reasonable day. I was outside working all day yesterday. And to be fair, until about the last race, which was 5:30, it started to get a bit chilly then. But on the whole, everybody was dressed accordingly, wrapped up, and yeah, it was a very, very enjoyable day. Not as busy as I expected, but still a real good day.
Willie Mullins there. Look at Willie Mullins winning more. So what do we think about Willie Mullins today? I mean, it's the El Fabiolo, as everybody's talking about in the Queen Mother Champion Chase. Is that the one for you? And is there any outsiders you might have for us there?
Yes, El Fabiolo. He will be priced accordingly, though. Very, very solid horse. He's a strange one, really, because he knows how much he can get away with when it comes to the jumping department. He's very quick. He's very low. He doesn't spend too much time in the air, this guy, and he can give his punters a fright because he likes to nudge a fence here and there, but he's a very strong, powerful horse, huge engine. I don't think he'll get beat today. Willie Mullins won the feature yesterday. I think he'll win the feature today. He ended up with 3 winners yesterday. He didn't get off the winning start, but the afternoon did get better as we went along. But as you can expect, got another very strong hand today, and I certainly can't see past El Fabiolo in today's feature again.
Good man, Paddy. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. You have yourself a good day. Hope it's dry for you as well. Thank you. Appreciate it. Did we get off to a winning start?
Guys, have a good day.
Oh, yeah, what happened to our syndicate?
Well, I wasn't going to mention anything about the syndicate. It begins today, OK? We'll start the syndicate today. I don't want to talk about...
You forgot, didn't you?
I'm going to get some more tips and then we'll see how things go for 8:30. I'll have some more tips.
See, and I should say, just listening to Paddy and him talking about what he took on race day, and I sip this all day. All this is hot water.
I know.
I'm so glad you've wised up to that now.
People will think
So
it's
good for
coffee
you.
or something. It's not. It's just hot water.
Very, very good for you.
How is it good for you?
It's just the really good way to start the morning. Hot water. Don't ask me. I'm not the scientist.
Nobody believes it's hot water, but it is hot water. I know it. I know it is. I can see it. But most people would not believe that it is hot water. But it is.
Well,
but it is.
It is.
It is.
Sure.
It is.
It is.
We've got to say goodbye to you, Paul. We've got to say hello to our paper reviewers who'll be with us next. We'll be taking a look at all the big stories of the day with Norman Baker and Renee Hunderkamp. See you in a mo.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Well, to cut a very long story short, I was the chaplain in a school and a pupil asked me to preach on how come they were told they had to accept the LGBT stuff in a Christian school. I thought that was a fair question. So I said, ultimately, no, you don't have to accept anybody else's ideas. You make up your own minds. And so on topics like the marriage being between a man and a woman, biological sex being real, gender identity not making perfect sense, therefore can't be entirely true. I said, you may adopt to the church's position on that and respect the people you disagree with, but you make up your own mind. For which, as you say, I was reported to Prevent, the anti-terror watchdog, secular safeguarding authorities, the Teaching Regulation Agency, Disclosure and Barring Service, all of whom eventually cleared me, but I lost my job at the school, and that's why there's legal action ongoing.
It's an incredibly powerful sermon, to be fair. What do you make of Justin Welby in his current role? I've obviously rattled off quite a few things there. I mean, you've had personal experience of feeling quite abandoned. What's your view on his position?
Well, he's doing a very difficult job, in fairness to him. My personal view is perhaps he's not doing the best job of it. I'll be diplomatic about it. In a sense, I'm on the wrong side of things as far as he's concerned, I guess. Not a word of support, not a whisper from anyone in the Church of England's hierarchy for someone simply saying, you may accept the Church of England's own teaching. And I can't quite see how he can square that in his own head, but he would have to answer to that himself, I guess.
I mean, the irony is that, though this is obviously through no fault of your own, the Church of England has recently baptised people who have gone on to not just be referred to Prevent, but actually commit acts of terrorism. Meanwhile, you were referred to Prevent for essentially teaching.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, let's go through stories making the papers today. And we've got Norman Baker and we've got medical writer Dr. Rennie Hunderkamp. Nice to see both of you here. Norman, what do you say about the Diane Abbott situation and how it is developing?
Well, it's developing in a way that makes the Prime Minister look weak and out of control, I think it is. And just speaking to Rennie off camera and wondering whether one of the reasons he's taken the limp view he has is because he doesn't want to upset this big Tory donor who's, I think, one of the biggest donors to the Tory party. And
he's the biggest ever donor. But can you would you be able to have access? People say this, they should just hand back the £10 million that is being donated. Is it as simple as that? Would they still have the £10 million?
They've got a bank account full of money, so I'm sure they could hand it back if they wanted to.
Why reward him, though, with giving him 10 million back? I mean, they should keep that money.
Exactly.
And just...
But people say that money's tainted.
But they didn't know that.
Well, then they could donate that money to a charity, that combats racism, for example.
Yeah.
I almost think more of a story here is, well, the fact that it took Kemi Badenoch to call this out rather than Rishi Sunak. You know, I don't know what to say.
Well, he could have had ownership of this.
He could have owned it, and I just don't know what it's going to take for him to realise he needs to be more decisive.
Yeah.
He needs to be on the front foot of this. If he'd said right away, this is wrong, this is racist, and we're not having this as a Conservative Party, he would have got himself some brownie points, actually, apart from anything else.
Well, we said he should have learnt from Prime Ministers of the past. If Boris had taken control of the Chris Pincher situation right up front, he may still be the Prime Minister today. And this is what Rishi's now doing. He's running away from problems and hiding, and nobody respects that. And he is a man of race. You know, there's every reason for him to speak out.
Rennie, I want to talk to you about having a bath.
Do you? Not now, Eamonn.
Well, from my situation, because of lack of leg movement, I haven't taken a bath in 12 years or so. And I really miss it because your other muscles ache and whatever from that. But the whole craze from almost everyone I know is to have cold baths.
It is.
Now. So, as a doc, what would you say about cold baths?
OK, so I think cold baths are horrific. However, there is very good evidence that it's very good for you, that it resets the immune system, that it gets your body working in a way that it wouldn't work otherwise, and that's why people do this cold bathing, cold swimming. Some people have little ice tubs in their garden that they get into every day. I have tried doing the cold shower bit just for a minute, which apparently a minute a day. I
can't do it.
I can't do it. I like the heat of my shower.
So do I. I have the shower on the maximum heat.
Yes.
Everyone else that gets in says it scalds them, but I can't even do 10 seconds of a cold shower, and I think I'd have a heart attack if I genuinely think I'd have a heart attack if I got into an ice bath. I mean, is that a risk, Doctor?
Well,
please tell me. I have a medical excuse.
I have actually been up to Manitoba in Canada, where there are signs by the water that say if you fall into this water, you've got 45 seconds to live.
Right.
Because that's really not good for you. So yes, I'm sure there is a risk, but I would imagine just in the shower it'd be OK as well. Just do it easy. Just do it bit by bit.
I'm just not going to. I'll try other health kicks, but not that one.
That sounds like a helpful notice, because in my hotel it's got a sign saying caution hot water next to the shower.
Yes, as if. You see, about getting into a shower, though, in a hotel, what I have learned,
Don't change the arrangements.
The last person who's in there got it right. And the thing that amazes me is why there's no red or blue sign or powerful or not powerful. You're left to guess. You're left to guess these things. And I've realised through experience, the last person will probably have got it right. Just turn it on.
Yes,
and
but
don't
some
touch
of these showers, you can't tell which is the temperature dial and which is the on-off dial.
That's
so
right.
you've turned the hot off in the process of trying to switch it on, and then you stand there going...
And also, if that last person in the room, Eamonn, was a cold shower fanatic...
Exactly. Or a scolder like me, you're in trouble.
What I'm really getting to is I don't understand why they're not stamped, why they're not printed, why that's regarded
doesn't
as
look pretty,
Yeah, the way it is. But also you're saying that a lot of people have stopped taking baths because of cost.
Well, I can't believe that if they're that worried about cost, one assumes they're actually not using their heating to full potential, so the house will probably be chillier anyway. I can't believe they would then get in a cold bath. I just can't believe that. I think it's a nonsense.
I do. As someone who lives in a cold house.
Yes, me too.
OK, let's move on. Norman, lots of debate about when this general election is going to be.
Yes.
And indeed, we had the 1922 committee having a secret meeting with the Prime Minister. Other people were suggesting he was going to be pushed into a corner. Others saying the Tories don't want an early election. What's the spin? What's your own view as well? When do you think it's going to be?
He has been warned by senior Tory MPs, apparently, according to The Sun, who usually know what they're talking about on these matters, that he shouldn't go in May because he'll have a drubbing. But, I mean, he will have a drubbing and goes in May, but he'll have an even bigger drubbing, in my view, he goes in October, because there isn't an easy answer for him. The reality is, if I were Rishi, I would actually go in May, because I think he would cut his losses. And if you look at Prime Ministers in the past, whether it's John Major or Gordon Brown, dragging it out to the end just annoys the public at large, and they get more and more irritated and more determined to vote the government out. So, and if he goes on to the end of the year, he'll have more boats in the Channel to deal with. He'll have bad election results in May. More
by-elections. More
by-elections. He may even have a sort of leadership challenge from some parts of the party, who knows. So my advice to Rishi, I'm sure he's listening to what I would say to him, is if I were you, I would go in May and take your medicine.
He can't be enjoying it. I mean, he's clearly, because they're going to clamp down on non-doms, aren't they? He and his wife are clearly going to make an exit out of the country as soon as this is done, off to LA. He must be thinking, I'd much rather be in a job where I'm treated with respect rather than constantly...
Very interesting, but I've got to have an early exit now. I've just got to move out. Norman and Rennie, see you again in about 40 minutes' time. Thank you very much indeed. Right now, we will see Annie Shuttleworth with the weather.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update. Heavy rain will persist across north and western areas through today and into Thursday, in fact. Whereas in the east, it will be much drier, brighter. And for everyone, it's going to be feeling much milder through the rest of the week. But very heavy rain will persist for parts of North Wales, the Lake District, southern areas of Scotland as well, particularly Dumfries and Galloway, seeing the heaviest of the rainfall. Further north, it should stay largely dry, apart from some very blustery showers. It will be very windy across northern Scotland. Gale force winds are expected, but in the south and east it's going to be a dry afternoon, breezy but still very mild, with highs of 15 or 16 degrees if we do see any breaks in the cloud. Through tonight, the rain is going to persist in similar areas, so it will stay very wet and overcast across North Wales and many northern areas of England, particularly across western coasts here, and we will see some outbreaks of rain moving into the southwest by Thursday morning. It should stay dry though in the far north and in the southeast, and for everyone it's going to be another very mild start to the day tomorrow. The rain will continue to push into northern areas, but it will shift slowly but surely further north into the central belt. Some more northern areas of Scotland seeing some rain later on in the day. We'll continue to see showers breaking out across southern areas of Wales, the southwest as well. These could turn quite heavy and be blustery too. But again, the far southeast should stay dry and bright, and we could see highs of 17 degrees. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Want to be a winner?
You've won £18,000.
I'm flipping heck. I don't know what to say.
Enter our massive spring giveaway with 3 big seasonal prizes to be won. There's £12,345 in tax-free cash to give your finances a spring boost. We'll also send you on a shopping spree with £500 worth of vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. You'll also get a garden gadget package. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GB WIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Hello there, very nice to see you. It's Eamonn and Isabel here. This is Breakfast on GB News, and the time is 8 o'clock. You're very welcome.
Very welcome to the programme. We're asking this morning what took so long. Pressure on the PM today as another Tory racism row has emerged over a donor's remarks over the Labour MP Diane Abbott.
Yes, it finally came from Number 10 last night that the remarks of the Tory donor were wrong and racist. A pressure building on the Prime Minister, on the Conservative Party, to hand back the £10 million in a week that Rishi Sunak just seems to keep having more and more bad news. I'll bring you the latest shortly.
But maybe good news for the sub-postmasters. Will it end in victory? The government is to introduce new legislation today to quash their convictions.
Sir Keir Starmer has promised that Dame Esther Rantzen will allow a vote on assisted dying should he win the next election.
Would that make you vote for him? Let us know. And very shortly, we'll be speaking to GB News' very own Anne Diamond about Safer Sleep Week, raising awareness about cot death after her own personal loss.
And in the sport, nervy night in North London. David Raya, the hero, as Arsenal scrape past Porto on penalties. Novak Djokovic loses to the world number 123. And Emma Raducanu talks balls. Tennis balls. Tennis balls, that is, of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, there'll be very heavy rain across northwestern areas through the next few days, but elsewhere it'll be very mild. Find out all the details with me a little later on.
So racist and wrong. That's how a spokesperson for the Prime Minister branded the alleged comments made by a major Tory donor about the black Labour MP Diane Abbott.
Diane Abbott was, of course, the first black woman to be elected to Parliament. The comments from a donor called Frank Hester, he is the party's biggest ever donor, told a meeting that Diane Abbott, and I quote, should be shot. And it made him, quote again, want to hate all black women. He has since apologised.
However, it's the lack of immediate condemnation of Hester's remarks which are now causing the Prime Minister a political headache. Let's get the thoughts in all of this from Catherine Forster. Look, what on earth took the Prime Minister so long to call out racism? Have we gone backwards in this country?
It seems to be becoming a bit of a pattern, doesn't it? When they're in an awkward situation, whether it be Sir Keir Starmer with Azhar Ali, the candidate for Rochdale that they ultimately had to drop over anti-Semitic comments, whether it be the reaction to the comments that Lee Anderson made that finally cost him the whip, or whether it be the quite shocking remarks made by this Tory donor that gave them £10 million. Politicians really seem to struggle to say what to millions of people up and down the country would be quite obvious. Now, in the case of Rishi Sunak, they spent all day yesterday saying that the comments that Diane Abbott should be shot, that she made him want to hate all black women, were unacceptable, but they would not say that they were racist. And then the business secretary, Kemi Badenoch, came out late in the afternoon, said on Twitter, these comments are wrong and racist. And lo and behold, a couple of hours later, the Prime Minister's spokesman said the same. Now, what took them so long? Well, I suspect it's all to do with the fact that he gave the party £10 million last year, £10 million out of a total of 48 million they were given last year. Bear in mind there's a general election looming. In admitting that the comments were racist, then that begs the question, which Labour and the Lib Dems are already asking, well, why haven't you given the money back? Clearly, they don't want to. They say he's apologised profusely, which he has. He's tried to ring Diane Abbott, who said that they make her feel threatened. She's a woman. She goes out and about on public transport. So the calls for them to give the money back growing. I have to say, I don't think that's going to happen.
OK, Catherine, thanks very much indeed. Joining
us now in the studio, co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism. That's Eamonn. Albie, I mean, obviously this is embarrassing. How hurtful do you find it? How shocking do you find it?
Shocking. I mean, even when you read out the comments just now, Eamonn, I was shocked. Every time I hear the comments, I am shocked and shocked again. Look, in terms of where the Conservative Party has ended up on this issue, I would say we got there in the end. I think it was very disappointing that I was one of the only voices yesterday morning to come straight off the bat and say this was a racist comment. Kwasi Kwarteng also said it on a BBC Politics show. Kemi Badenoch tweeted about it later on in the day.
But I tell you who's not saying anything about it, the Prime Minister.
Well, he said something about it later on in the day yesterday.
A spokesperson.
Well, exactly. And I am sure that in Prime Minister's questions today, the question will come up and he will have to give a straight and honest answer because anything else will be unacceptable to me. But as I said, on the Conservatives, where we've arrived on this, we got there in the end. On the question about whether or not the money should be given back, which I'm sure everyone wants to know whether or not that is something which should be done, I've been very firm on this. I don't actually think it should be given back. My view is that the money should be spent on people and causes that can improve the Conservative and centre-right race relations cause within the Conservative Party to ensure that nothing like this happens again. Good can come from this. The next steps matter.
And I can't believe I'm even going to ask you this question, Albie, but just explain why it is important to call out racism, not least when we've seen 2 MPs murdered for doing their jobs.
Because it is wrong. It's a simple matter of right and wrong. We know racism is wrong. Britain is not a racist country. Millions of people up and down the country will have heard the comments that were reported yesterday from 5 years ago. 2019 is not a long time ago. I remember 2019. I'm sure you do. I'm sure our viewers do as well. It was not a time where these comments were ever acceptable. And millions of people up and down the country would have thought that was totally wrong. And the minister on the media round yesterday morning was not able to say what the country was thinking.
Well, he must have been furious. Imagine being told you're not allowed to say that and being put out in front of the baying media. It's an incredibly difficult position that ministers are being put in, and that's weak leadership.
It is a hugely difficult position for ministers to be put in, for then the position to change later on in the day, and the Conservative Party needs to do better.
You see, as you say, for a position to change later in the day, Albie, to me, things are either right or wrong, and it's obvious right from the start what is the right thing to do. So, you know, some 17-year-old advisor telling you to do this, I would think, no, just get on and say what needs to be said. There will be an argument, though, and I find this equally distasteful, that a lot of people will try and excuse this by saying, yeah, but it's Diane Abbott we're talking about here. And there will not be a lot of sympathy for Diane Abbott. But there's no room. I mean, this is wrong. It's wrong whatever way you look at it, and whoever it is about.
I have profound political differences with Diane Abbott. Profound political differences with Diane Abbott. I would never use language like this against Diane Abbott. She was the first black female MP elected in Parliament. There are many black politicians that Conservatives look to today, people like Kemi Badenoch, for example, people like Helen Grant, people like James Cleverly, Bir Mafalami, for example, who I do not think would be where they are in politics today were it not for people like Diane Abbott in the mid-20th century blazing the trail for black politicians in this country. We can disagree with her politically. Yes, she's said some very questionable and anti-Semitic things in the past, but she deserves respect, and she does not deserve to be told that she makes you want to hate all black people, or that she should be shot. These are incitements to violence, racist comments, and also misogynistic. Unacceptable.
Albie, there's good news that the government would be able to be talking about this morning. You know, we've seen the economy grow, which is everyone's been banging on about for so long. We could soon be out of this recession. It could be a short and shallow recession. The government will be very much hoping to focus on that. They're bringing in new legislation to quash the convictions of these wrongfully convicted postmasters. But because of the delay and the dither, nobody's talking about that. And that has to be a serious question about leadership. Do we need to have a general election now?
The Prime Minister will call a general election when he's ready to call a general election. I personally do not think now would be a good time for a general election.
Why not?
Because it is very clear that there are kinks that need to be ironed out in the number 10 machine before we go into an election. I think the response to this clearly racist incident over the past couple of days has shown that there is something which is not working, and that needs to be quickly corrected. And there should not be a general election until that correction has happened. The government and Rishi Sunak have a good story to tell on taxes, on bringing down immigration, although it is too high, on new legislation which is coming forward about crime. There's a good story to tell, but things keep getting scuppered because of these PR mishaps, and that needs to be corrected before there is a general election.
What about future donations to the party in the run-up to that election? Is there any way back for Mr Hester?
I think it would be very difficult to see a way back for Mr Hester to the Conservative Party in terms of being a donor or even a member, to be quite frank. I would not be comfortable with us to continue to take money from this man. As I mentioned before, with the monies that have already been given to the party, I've outlined how I think that should be spent on people and causes who can further the Conservative and centre-right race relations cause, but there should be no further relationship with Mr Hester.
Given that this
and
is the
party.
second racism row at the centre of the Conservative Party in the last 2 weeks, have you been contacted or approached for advice from Number 10, given your capacity in setting up this group of Conservatives against racism?
No, I haven't personally been contacted. You know, I've met Rishi Sunak. I know some of the team at Number 10. I know many Conservative MPs. I've spoken to Conservative MPs privately. I'm always here if people want to chat. I'm here to help. Conservatives Against Racism is here to help. There are many other groups that are here to help in the Conservative Party with issues like this. It didn't have to come to this. The right line could have been taken yesterday, and we would have been talking about something else by now.
But I think it's so important to talk to you. And I think it's important to say, look, if we're to move forward in this, what would we do with this donation? How would you see it working? Who would you see it helping? I do just think it's, again, common sense. Call Albie in, talk to you and your associates with that sort of thing. And it's an opinion, but it's an essential opinion within the Conservative Party, I would have thought. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Albie. Right, well, we touched on it there. The post office scandal is back in the headlines today, but the government will be pleased about this. They're introducing a new bill which will do what?
It would overturn wrongful convictions, all wrongful convictions in the Horizon scandal. Prime Minister has said the bill will mark an important step in finally clearing the names of hundreds of victims.
And one of those victims is the former postmaster Janet Skinner, who was handed down a 9-month sentence in 2007 over an alleged shortfall of £59,000, which was absolute nonsense, was it not, Janet? How do you feel today about this new legislation?
I mean, it's good for the people now coming forward to have the convictions overturned and not have to go through what we've had to go through. Our fight for justice has been going on for decades. It took from the group litigation in 2019 to actually get our convictions overturned in 2021. So it makes it an easier option for people to come forward now.
Janet, from your point, you were handed a 9-month sentence so many years ago, 7 years ago or so. How was your life affected? Your conviction was quashed by the Court of Appeal a few years ago. But what does all this meant to you? What has the human cost been to you? How has this redirected your whole life, for instance?
Mine was actually 17 years ago. It changed everything. It's changed me physically. I ended up ill, and it's left me with mobility problems. And it's just been an ongoing thing for decades. It's still ongoing. Even though this new legislation's been brought into place today, we've still got the inquiry going ahead. There's police investigations into the post office's wrongdoings. So, I mean, really, other than this overturning convictions today, there's still no end in sight. The fight's still going on.
Yeah, but Jan, here's what I'd love to know. We hear about this fraud that goes on and that you guys, you know, I'm not sure if it's a shop you run, if it's a pure mechanical thing in relation to the post office or whatever form the business takes. But how do you end up stealing money? What are they talking about? Are they talking about someone buys a bag of Jelly Babies or 100 stamps and they, you know, you charge them £100 and put 60 in your pocket? Or what are you supposed to be doing that's cleaning this money off the post office?
Putting it in your bag and walking out with it, basically, is what they're saying. You've been using it for your own lifestyle choices, holidays, cars, whatever expenses they believe people had. But the problem is the money was never there to have been stolen. It was the system wasn't fit for purpose. It wasn't fit for purpose in 2000 when it was rolled out, and it certainly wasn't fit for purpose in 2014. So you've got quite a lot of people who have basically put the money in the wallets or put the money in the purses and walked out with it.
For Janet, anyone that's seen the ITV documentary that has done so much to move the dial in the right direction on this story will have a small sense of what this injustice has felt like. But from your own perspective, in your own words, take us back to that day you were in cuffs and sent to jail, and you were lying in your prison cell, going to sleep for the first time. You were going to serve 3 months or so before you were let out. You must have lost all faith in humanity. I mean, what was going through your mind? How did that feel?
So when you're telling the truth and nobody wants to listen, and nobody wanted to listen because it was the post office, this trusted brand that was in every shop, local shop, and served the community. I mean, so going to prison, to be honest, I actually don't really remember a lot of that day. I remember bits of that day, but not a lot of it. I was actually put on suicide watch for 2 weeks because of the state that I was in emotionally. I mean, I had 2 teenage children, and on the advice of my legal team, they advised me to plead guilty to false accounting for the theft to be dropped, which, to be honest, now when you see it, is what's been going on with everybody. They've done the exact same thing. I think what the drama has done is it's put our situation into layman's terms for people to be understanding it, to be drawn into people's houses. But I think the heart of social media and the fact that you can stream and you can download things, I think it's given it such a bigger, wider audience. People can understand it more.
And tell me, what was it like being a sub postmistress? Was it a good job? Was it something that you were content in doing? And how do you feel? I mean, if someone said to you tomorrow you could have that job back, what would you say?
So if I could turn back time and take that job back, I'd take it back tomorrow. I loved that job, and I did. Every day was a different day. You was dealing with the most personal thing to people, which is money. It was the money. It sounds stupid. The money that the office carried was never of value to me. It became of value when you're passing it over to that person. It was, and honestly, I genuinely, absolutely loved that job. But would I work for the post office now? Absolutely not.
Their loss, Janet, their loss. We're so pleased that these convictions will be quashed very soon, and we're really grateful for you, given all of the impact that this has had on your life, on your children's lives, on your health, that you've taken the time to talk to us about it. Thanks very much, Janet Skinner, this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Gosh, can you imagine? Incredible.
The
injustice of it.
Yeah, just feeling like no one believes you. Did her own teenage children question her? They'd be totally legitimate to doubt her because she'd been found guilty of something. Awful situation, and I don't know that quashing the convictions and any paltry amount of compensation will ever really make up for what they've suffered.
It's 18 minutes past 8 o'clock on this Wednesday morning. Breakfast in GB News with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Time now for your forecast. Here's Annie Shuttleworth.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update. Heavy rain will persist across north and western areas through today and into Thursday, in fact. Whereas in the east, it will be much drier, brighter, and for everyone, it's going to be feeling much milder through the rest of the week. But very heavy rain will persist for parts of North Wales, the Lake District, southern areas of Scotland as well, particularly Dumfries and Galloway, seeing the heaviest of the rainfall. Further north, it should stay largely dry, apart from some very blustery showers. It will be very windy across northern Scotland. Gale force winds are expected, but in the south and east it's going to be a dry afternoon, breezy but still very mild, with highs of 15 or 16 degrees if we do see any breaks in the cloud. Through tonight, the rain is going to persist in similar areas, so it will stay very wet and overcast across North Wales and many northern areas of England, particularly across western coasts here, and we will see some outbreaks of rain moving into the southwest by Thursday morning. It should stay dry though in the far north and in the southeast, and for everyone it's going to be another very mild start to the day tomorrow. The rain will continue to push into northern areas, but it will shift slowly but surely further north into the central belt. Some more northern areas of Scotland seeing some rain later on in the day. We'll continue to see showers breaking out across southern areas of Wales, the southwest as well. These could turn quite heavy and be blustery too. But again, the far southeast should stay dry and bright, and we could see highs of 17 degrees. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now,
the Great British Giveaway.
Yeah, if you haven't heard about these, you've been living under a rock or something, because we've been giving lots of things away, and this time is no different. We're giving away garden gadgets, shopping sprees, and how much cash?
12,345 quid. Don't believe me? Have a look at this.
We've got cash, treats and a spring shopping spree to be won in the Great British Giveaway. You could win an amazing £12,345 in tax-free cash. Plus, there's a further £500 of shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. We'll also give you a gadget package to use in your garden this spring. That includes a games console, a pizza oven and a portable smart speaker, so you can listen to GB News on the go. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
What are you doing?
Maybe I'm just slightly too small to be a jockey. But we're crossing live to Cheltenham, the latest day 2 of the Cheltenham Festival.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Our woke army, a topic we talk about almost every day on this show. And now the decision to allow women to join frontline army fighting has been described as a failed exercise in political correctness, because government figures reveal that only 15 female recruits completed basic training for either infantry or tank units between January and September of 2023. A senior army officer says women are put off joining frontline units amid numerous allegations of rape and sexual discrimination. Well, joining me now is former NATO commander and Royal Navy officer Rear Admiral Chris Parry, CBE. Chris, always a pleasure to see you on the show. So here we are again, we're talking about diversity targets, and it seems that no matter how much they huff and they puff, young women simply aren't joining up.
Well, I mean, the life's not for everybody, Martin. It's not even for most men, to tell you the truth. This is a tough life, and it's a life that is geared towards the sort of physical and mental, I hesitate to say skills, but aptitudes that men have. You know, the idea that men and women are interchangeable in all these roles is ridiculous. What we need to have is all roles open to both men and women, and those that are suitable and have the aptitude for those jobs should be going into them. If we've got 15 women who are going into the infantry and the armoured corps, then that's fine. They're the ones that are suitable. It's as simple as that. Any idea that we should have quotas or any sort of percentage of people from certain ethnic groups or from women is ridiculous. We want the best people who serve our country and can defend it.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Today's Style Day at the Cheltenham Festival. This lady's caught my eye today. Brilliant picture of her.
Gorgeous.
Front page of the Daily Telegraph, and a magnificent hat there, Paul.
Yeah, it's good because then you can take it off and you can rest your feet on it when you get home as well afterwards. It's one of those wonderful things.
What have you say? Day 2 of the Cheltenham Festival. Let's go to our man there, Jack Carson. Tell us more, Jack.
Yeah, good morning to you both. Well, it's Style Wednesday here at Cheltenham Festival. I think I've put on a decent bit of style as well to try and fit in with the crowd. The flat cap, though, firmly now one with me. But yesterday was a fantastic first day of action here at Cheltenham Festival. Willie Mullins, of course, we talked about him, didn't we? Trying to go for 100 festival wins. He's already got a few under his belt from his runners yesterday, so he could well break that record today, and certainly, hopefully, he'll be thinking by the end of the week as well. Of course, today is Style Day. It's renamed traditionally, of course, called Women's Day, but of course it's now Style Wednesday. Very much thinking from the Jockey Club and the race course here that they wanted to kind of encourage slow fashion. They're calling it fast horses, slow fashion. So encouraging people to re-wear pieces or hand-me-downs and things like that. So that's why that name change has come from. But of course, we were also talking yesterday about the kind of animal rights protesters that always kind of campaign around these times of these festivals, of course, and wanting tougher and stricter regulation around horse racing. And yesterday we did unfortunately see the death of a horse, Highland Hunter, just after the 250 coming around the final couple of hurdles. It was very quick. There was a black screen that went up and that horse was sadly confirmed to have died later on. But we spoke to Nevin Truesdale from the Jockey Club about horse welfare. Here's what he told us.
It's impossible to overstate
the importance of welfare to the racing community and how important equine welfare is. We have a moral obligation to make sure these horses are as well cared for as they can possibly be. As an industry, we've spent over 40 million in the last 20 years on welfare, improving welfare standards, not just on the tracks, but in the stables, on the horse walks, at yards, really having this absolutely at the centre of everything we do. The simple fact is that 99.82% of horses who go out to race come back perfectly safe and sound. And yes, one fatality is definitely one too many, but the measures we're taking in terms of the track setup, the jumps, the conditions of the races, that's under constant review. We have an independent body called the Horse Welfare Board that set a strategy for this 4 or 5 years ago. We've been following that and we've been investing accordingly since.
So it's clear there is obviously a strategy there, and all eyes once again will be on the racetrack here at Cheltenham.
Thank you, Jack. I still prefer the lady's hat on the Daily Telegraph as well. So we spend up, it seems to be such a predictable pattern that we go to a big event and we talk about all the downside of it, the protests and the fatalities and all this sort of thing.
There's two sides, of course, of it, but obviously it's a great day as well. I mean, it's a great festival.
Well, I think when you use that word festival, like Christmas being a festival or whatever, I think people are looking forward to it. I think it's such a miserable time of the year, and we've spent 3 months to get to here. And even though, as you will testify, Isabel, it's not the best time of the year seasonally to...
You get the odd beautiful day at Cheltenham weather-wise, don't you? But most of the time, you get the mixed bag.
I don't know if that was yesterday or not, but it doesn't look to me...
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Was it?
I think they were generally dry yesterday. That was the lucky part. Obviously, it was a little muddy out there. I just worry about Jack, the way, with the style of Jack. I just wonder, Jack's going with that spiv look, and I just wonder everybody's going to go up to him and try and place bets with him.
He looks like a Peaky Blinder. He looks like he's from the Peaky Blinders.
Right, so Champions League, now there's going to be the draw this week. Arsenal are going to be included in the quarter-final draw.
They are. Porto it was yesterday, so they were 1-0 down, Arsenal. It was expected. There were these tweets, you see, that was like, hashtag pray for Porto. A lot of Arsenal fans thought they were going to walk over Porto last night. It certainly wasn't a walkover. They did go 1-0 up into the second half, just before the second half. Then it went 2-0, but that was disallowed. It went all the way to penalties, and Arsenal came through 4 beautiful penalties, and everything went very well. And there's Mikel Arteta looking very happy there, Captain Black.
Right. Not so happy is Emma Raducanu. And basically, she's in Indian Wells. She's already out of this competition.
She is in California.
But she is complaining, and I'm not sure this is a good look, but tell us it's balls. No, it's not that it's balls. I'm just saying that it's balls she's complaining
about. She's talking balls. Yeah. Talking about the balls, that is. Because there's different weights of balls for different tournaments.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because...
But they all have to be the same weight for a certain tournament.
No, they don't. See, the thing is, you've got, for Indian Wells, they use the manufacturer Penn, which are a different weight to Dunlop, which are used in Miami, Schlesinger, which is in Wimbledon, so they have to adjust the way that they play. And she says
that's surely ridiculous. I know. I tend to agree with her with that. I mean, look, when we were growing up, I mean, footballs were the same weight. There was used to be able to buy in the shops regulation size 5. Yeah. The Bobby Moore football and whatever. But there's regulation sizes worldwide.
Yes. Regulation size. The size is the same, but the weight is different on some of these balls. So she's saying that you have to adjust it, and some of the balls are heavier than the other ones, and then that's affecting injuries.
I don't like that.
It's been said before, so she's got bad wrists.
I just don't see why you would have different balls for different tournaments.
Yes, horses for courses.
Or that the balls would be different. They shouldn't be different.
I agree. I think
in
so.
Any
You're
way
with
whatsoever.
Emma. You're with Emma.
I'm with Emma. I'm with Emma on that one.
I'm very pleased.
Board games, horsey board games.
Because the thing is, if you can't get to Cheltenham, you can bring the Cheltenham to your home. So there was a game that we used to play. I don't know whether you remember this, called They're Off. Have a look at this. Now, see if this rings a bell. There it is now. It was a record. There's a few of these. We used to have this. So you get a record and you put the record. Everybody would bet on their horses. You get your little tickets. So you'd all have your little bet. And then the needle would go on the record, but there'd be different grooves for each race.
So there'd be a commentary.
Yes. And you go, and so-and-so is going to win. And the thing is, you don't know which one it's going to be. So you put whatever depending on the groove. And then that would... Well, it's fun for the whole family. It's fun for the whole family.
So you didn't see anything. It's like listening to it on the radio.
Correct. Yeah, but it'd be on a record. I've still got it. Maybe I'll bring it in for you.
I used to have a game called, I think it was called Formula One.
Right.
By Waddington. Waddington
made that. Waddington made Totopoly, the other...
Same one, yeah.
Yeah, they all made all those sporting games.
Magnificent, magnificent.
So how did that work?
Well, you got a little dashboard, and you have, what's that we're looking at there?
That's Totopoly. That's Totopoly.
Yeah, right.
That came out in 1938.
Yeah.
Still make it now, I think.
That's incredible. But like Formula One, you used to get a dashboard and you would do your speeds on it and your braking power and all that sort of thing and roll the dice. And it's very hard to explain, but we enjoyed it. We enjoyed it. Oh, that was such a thing at Christmas, Isabel. There you would see you open up and you get a game like that, and that made Christmas.
That is Christmas.
It was like horse racing in your own home.
Yes, without the donkey.
Without the horses.
Without the GGs.
Yes.
Thank you very much indeed. We will take a break there, Paul. Appreciate it. Thanks for this morning. We've got Anne Diamond. We're going to be talking to Anne very, very shortly in honour of Safer Sleep Week. She's very emotionally and personally attached to this. Hear what she has to say.
Yeah, and has indeed been honoured for it. We'll get all the latest from her in a sec.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together. For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, I'm very pleased to introduce a very familiar face to you now. Our very own Anne Diamond, of course, a national treasure and an OBE, known for her decades-long television career, but also a proud mother to 5 sons.
I'm going to tell you the tale about one of them this morning. Anne tragically lost her 3rd son. He was Sebastian. He was just over 4 months old at the time. The year was 1991 and the cause of death was cot death.
Yeah, and since then, Anne has campaigned to spread awareness and has herself been responsible for reducing cot deaths from 2,500 a year to just 300. Absolutely incredible, Anne. I was actually pregnant when I first met you with my first child, and you were doing the pay-per-views with Eamonn and me. And your story impacted me so much. I thought about you almost every day. I put my baby down to sleep on his back, and it was your Back to Sleep campaign that has changed and saved all these lives. It's incredible.
It is incredible, and it's so amazing you saying that, because the incredible thing we discovered, we had to go all the way to New Zealand to discover it, because they were doing a lot of campaigning there, was that it was a very simple message. But we, at the time, in 1991, when I had Sebastian, we were all told to sleep babies on their tummies, and that was the accepted practice. But what we didn't know, it was really heightening the risk of cot death to all of those babies. It doesn't mean that every baby who sleeps on its tummy is going to die of cot death, but for some reason it just meant that if we could give out that very, very simple message, put your baby on his or her back to sleep, the cot death rate plummeted. And nobody, even to this day, nobody really knows why, the mechanism of cot death, what changes it, but we just know that it works. And there's no danger in sleeping your baby on his or her back either. So do it, and you severely reduce the risk of cot death happening to you.
And Anne, would it be right in saying that the risk of putting baby on their stomach is suffocation?
Well, no, I mean, there were a lot of postmortems done in the days when 2,500 babies a year were dying, and they never really got to the conclusion. It's something to do with overheating. You sort of tend to overheat more if you're face down. I think even adults, if you sleep on your tummy, you tend to find that. You tend to go into a more deep sleep, from which maybe some babies just can't pull themselves out of it. And then there are other risk factors, like if there's any small infection in the house at all, in the family, then that's another sort of added thing that makes it difficult for the baby to maybe pull themselves out of a sleep. It's extraordinary that we still don't know the mechanism, but in a way we don't need to.
Anne, do you mind if I ask you a little bit about Sebastian? It really amazes me how a mother who can lose a child in such a shocking and unexpected way, so little, so precious, can then turn that grief into something so positive. How did you find the strength to get up, get a camera crew, as you say, travel to the other side of the world and investigate all of this?
Tell you what, I think it was anger more than anything. I was angry at Sebastian for dying. You know, you feel like saying, God, 32 years later, and I can still get very, very upset about it. But you do. I was angry that he died and he didn't call out for me. I was angry that that while he was born and lived with me and slept and then died, they were actively campaigning in New Zealand to try and stop this happening, because they had a very high cot death rate there. They had the lady, the Anne Diamond, if you like, of New Zealand, a television presenter called Judy Bailey, went on telly every night and said, if you're just about to put your baby down to sleep, put him on his or her back, not the tummy, and this will help. And their cot death rate plummeted. And I went out to New Zealand and met her, and it was anger that drove me to come back and demand that we have the same advert here, the same campaign. And of course, I got all this complete nonsense from the Department of Health saying, you know, oh, young mothers do not watch television, I was told. You know, that they would put a sort of a working party on it that would meet in 5 years' time and look at the data. And then I found out, even worse, was that we in Britain had agreed, we knew what was going on in New Zealand, and we'd agreed to be a control. In other words, while New Zealand mums were being told how to save their babies' lives, we actively denied British mums that advice during the time that Sebastian and others were dying.
The education continues, the memory of Sebastian continues as well. The fact that you were awarded an OBE in recognition of your work on this front. You're now fronting the Safer Sleep Week. Could you tell us about that and what the message is?
Well, the message, it's just a way of reminding everybody, because obviously there are new mothers and fathers all the time. There is the new generation always going on who won't know who I am. They won't remember my personal tragedy. So you just have to keep reminding. And Safer Sleep Week is just about reminding of the advice. First of all, the most important thing is baby should sleep on his or her back. And then watch out for not overheating them. There are lots of sort of tips to make their sleeping environment much safer. But the most important one is back to sleep, and has been now for 32 years.
Yeah, I think one of the other ones is to make sure their feet are touching the end of the cot so that their blankets don't go over their heads.
That's right. When babies wriggle, they tend to wriggle downwards. And in the day, a lot of babies were found dead having wriggled underneath their duvet. They shouldn't have duvets either. I mean, there's lots and lots of advice. Yeah. If you just Google safer sleep, you'll get it.
And the other point, I suppose, to make is it's helpful to educate all generations, because when I had my babies, my mum would say, oh, he's not settling, just stick him on his tummy, he'll be much happier. That's what we did with you. And we had to say, well, things have changed, and, you know, we know better than that. And, you know, obviously she listened to me, but it's about educating everybody, because it's not just the mums that get their hands on the babies.
Absolutely. Everybody who looks after a baby, it doesn't matter how old.
Well, Anne, well done.
Good luck with getting this message out, Anne. Sorry for making you talk about that, but if it saves lives, then that is the important thing. Thank you very much indeed.
Him too.
And if you want to find out more about Anne's Safer Sleep Week or donate, you can visit the Lullaby Trust's website. That's lullabytrust.org.uk, lullabytrust.org.uk.
Love Anne. Really great talking to her. Stay with us. We've got Norman Baker and Renee Hunderkamp. They'll be here talking about what's making the news next here on GB News Breakfast.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Dubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
Get this right, we all know by now, don't we, that so many NHS workers are abused by people that they're trying to help. We'll all agree that that is pretty damn disgraceful, but what do we do about it? Because now some London hospitals are looking at whether or not they should be able to ban people that do this for a year from those hospital facilities. Is that the way forward? Daniel, do you like this? No abuse, no excuse, that is the campaign?
There's no other choice for most people. It's either the NHS or nothing. And if you're going to take that monopolistic power, then you need, I think, you have responsibilities towards people. You can't cut them off. So there are ways in which, of course, you can bring criminal charges against them. If they commit a criminal offence, that's fine. They might even be locked up in jail. But what you can't do is cut off health services because you're the only supplier.
Well, yes, I think you can cut it off, and you should cut it off. London is very different from everywhere else, and it goes back to a conversation about immigration. The majority of nurses in London are either African or Filipino, and it harks back to their nature and their culture. When you're younger, your parents look after you. When you're older, you look after them. They don't go into homes. So there's a way that a threshold of tolerance they have that is above and beyond most people. So, because I found like when I was younger, most of the nurses were white. Now they work in hospitals in Ascot and Somerset. London is the war zone. I have seen horrific things happen to nurses, and they stay. They show up for work. There's a protection they are owed, beyond owed. And if you abuse something that's offered to you as a part of your citizenship, there should be a penalty for that. For the same reason,
you're obliged to use it. There's no offer involved in the NHS.
But there is an offer, because at the end of the day, like you figure out how to get money and go private. So just because you've created something that gives you no, it's easy. If it's
that's
easy,
an impossible solution.
They've created something that's kind and easy and beneficial to all, indeed. But it's a good thing for all. Do not abuse it. That simple.
Norman Baker and Dr. Rennie Honderkamp. They've got stories making the headlines today. Norman, I want to start with a Thames Water bailout, the possibility of one. Tell us a story.
This is the Lib Dem MP, actually, Sarah Olney, who has been demanding the government publish a contingency plan if Thames Water go down the plug hole, as it were. And it's likely they might well do. And Thames Water, their view on the matter is that in order to keep their shareholders happy, notwithstanding they've got massive debts of about 14 billion, they want to pay their shareholders higher dividends to keep them happy, and they want to put up water bills by 40%. And I have to say, personally, I think water privatisation was the worst privatisation there was, and water should be publicly owned. And the idea that these people should pay out dividends, run out massive bills, chuck sewage in our rivers, and put up water bills is absolutely unacceptable.
It should be illegal. I don't understand how you can be paid dividends when you're providing such a poor service.
Well, particularly for something which is so crucial as water. And I think Sarah Olney's right, they should be all public, and I think, personally, I think we should renationalise the water industry.
Well, they simply thought they were on a cash cow, that they would get the kickback from all of this without having to invest. And the trouble is, the whole state of Thames Water is obviously decrepit and falling down. But they don't adhere. It isn't the cash cow they thought it would be, and they're not going to take any pain on it, Norman. That's the thing.
No, we're going to take the pain, the people who have to buy the water.
I wonder what would happen if they say, well, we haven't got any money to pay this anymore, we're not interested in this. I wonder what would happen.
Well, the contingency plan, that's what Sarah Olney wants published, it would tell us that, because what it will mean is, I think, a whole lot of government money will have to go into public supporting it. Because we can't have the water turned off, so the government will pay the bill.
Doctor, leading scientists are warning that the COVID inquiry appears to be fundamentally biased and is failing to examine the costs of lockdown.
100%. And if anybody's watched any of this inquiry, which is scheduled to go on for years and cost billions, all it has looked at is, you know, should we have locked down sooner, faster, harder? It hasn't looked at the collateral damage, the children who have bigger mental health problems they've ever had, the 100,000 ghost children that never returned to school, the people that died alone because they didn't get the treatment that they need, the cancer patients that had their treatment withdrawn. It's shocking. We need to scrap this inquiry. Other countries have had their inquiry done, dusted, finished and moved on. We need a cost analysis of everything that happened, both the people that died from COVID and how they could have been better protected, but also the people who weren't at risk from COVID, and there were lots of those, and how they could be better protected.
Is it not important to examine the inner machinations of government and how those decisions were made, and not least to expose how we were being governed by WhatsApps, and those can be deleted, or factory resets can
lots of them have
suddenly be lost?
Well, it is important, but will we actually do that is a question, because these inquiries, I mean, look at the ones in Northern Ireland events, they happen long after the issues in question. They take years to be formulated. They're not complete, and the report afterwards, when everybody who's involved has long disappeared. So those who should be held to account will no longer be in office.
Well, we actually had a situation in that inquiry where one of the scientists, Carol Sikora, raised cancer patients being harmed, was told that we're not looking at that today, please move on. I mean, it's a disgrace.
On Sunday at the Saudi Arabia, sorry, it was a Saturday, Saudi Arabia Grand Prix, we have, Norman, a new British Formula One star. This guy is one to watch.
Yes.
His name's Oliver Bearman, good-looking lad. You'll see him there in the red shirt. What have you got to tell us about Oliver?
I think this is great. Someone who's 18. I don't know if he's the youngest ever Formula One driver or whether there's been anyone younger, but this is great. That he was younger, was he? That Oliver Bearman, who's ours, of course, in this country, has been in a Formula One car at the age of 18. But the story in The Sun, which is, I suppose, quite amusing, was that he failed his driving test by messing up at the lights.
Too fast, probably.
Too fast.
Too quick off the lights.
Probably.
Yeah, that will fail you.
What was brilliant about this young boy is the day before he'd qualified in pole position for Formula 2, completely different car, driven in a different way. He got a phone call to stand in for Carlos Sainz, who had appendicitis, to say, we're pulling you out of that competition. You're now driving in the Grand Prix. He had an hour to get used to the car.
God.
And not only did he not crash it into the wall, which many of the established drivers do every single week, he actually started 11th and came in 7th.
Wow.
Amazing.
It is amazing when you think of the expertise and the experience that would be required to do all of this, and yet he did it, and congratulations, and he's a name I think we'll be seeing and reading a lot more about.
Let's talk about Barbie, shall we? And perhaps an unlikely Barbie now, a royal Barbie, the Queen no less, and Camilla says it's taken years off her, not a few years, 50.
It's very rare that I want to talk about Barbie, as you know. But I actually thought this was really cute. It's a nice doll. It's not a young thing who's, 20-something with an amazing figure. And it has taken years off of her. But I think that's absolutely amazing. And I think good for her.
It's a good likeness, though, isn't it?
Nailed the hair.
Good likeness. But good for her for taking it in such good, humour and making such brilliant quips about how it's taken years off her.
Yeah. Well, good for her, but not the royal doctored photograph.
Oh, come on. Well, yeah, I mean, since you mentioned that, what do you think about all of that scandal?
Well, I mean, look, the first thing to say about that is that she's entitled to, Princess is entitled to her own medical history and problems to be sorted out privately. It's nobody's business what's happening to her in terms of her health. I do think the palace over the many years has been very keen to send out photographs which it supports itself and to suppress photographs which are unhelpful. And I think some of the press this week has been about reacting to that long-term trend of the palace to try and manipulate the press.
In other words, you're saying the picture agencies were having revenge?
I think the picture agencies and indeed the tabloids this week were having revenge on that attitude from the palace, but that's a completely different issue from making sure that any health problems that the princess have are kept private.
I think they pushed her into releasing this photo and it's completely unravelled. I think they should leave the poor girl alone before she actually considers, killing herself, because the pressure on her this week has been absolutely insane. She's not well, clearly. Let her recover. We wouldn't do this to just a member of the public who is unwell. Anyone in the spotlight gets this insane media attention. And it's social media, isn't it? It's these wild conspiracy theories that have driven this here. Leave her alone.
No, I'm not sure it is totally social media. I think these picture agencies have a lot to answer for, as if they've never put out a doctored picture before, or what they knew about or not. I think they're dictating what is going to be news and what's not news, and they were wanting more than what they actually got. So I think we'll have an inquiry into that'll be
probably will.
5 years or so.
It was such a beautiful photo until they picked it.
Well, it was indeed.
We've got to wrap.
Doctor, got to say goodbye to you, Norman. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you
Appreciate
both.
it. Thank you very much indeed. Annie Shuttleworth, morning.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News. Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update. Heavy rain will persist across north and western areas through today and into Thursday, in fact. Whereas in the east, it will be much drier, brighter. And for everyone, it's going to be feeling much milder through the rest of the week. But very heavy rain will persist for parts of North Wales, the Lake District, southern areas of Scotland as well, particularly Dumfries and Galloway, seeing the heaviest of the rainfall. Further north, it should stay largely dry, apart from some very blustery showers. It will be very windy across northern Scotland. Gale force winds are expected, but in the south and east it's going to be a dry afternoon, breezy but still very mild, with highs of 15 or 16 degrees if we do see any breaks in the cloud. Through tonight, the rain is going to persist in similar areas, so it will stay very wet and overcast across North Wales and many northern areas of England, particularly across western coasts here, and we will see some outbreaks of rain moving into the southwest by Thursday morning. It should stay dry though in the far north and in the southeast, and for everyone it's going to be another very mild start to the day tomorrow. The rain will continue to push into northern areas, but it will shift slowly but surely further north into the central belt. Some more northern areas of Scotland seeing some rain later on in the day. We'll continue to see showers breaking out across southern areas of Wales, the southwest as well. These could turn quite heavy and be blustery too. But again, the far southeast should stay dry and bright, and we could see highs of 17 degrees. Bye-bye. Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We've got cash, treats and a spring shopping spree to be won in a great British giveaway. You could win an amazing £12,345 in tax-free cash. Plus, there's a further £500 of shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. We'll also give you a gadget package to use in your garden this spring. That includes a games console, a pizza oven and a portable smart speaker, so you can listen to GB News on the go. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GB-WIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Mark Dolan Tonight. Weekends from 9 p.m.
Kinsey, great to have you back on the show. Now, listen, we're not slated to talk about the Prince Harry story, but I've kind of surprised a few people by suggesting that I think he should have armed royal protection when he's in Britain. What do you think?
Well, they aren't my tax dollars that are paying for Prince Harry's protection, but I agree with you. I think that he should feel safe, and he should feel safe to bring his family back to see his father, if that's the case.
Well, his stepmother, Kinsey, Queen Camilla, gets a well-deserved break. Tell me more.
That's right. Queen Camilla has no engagements on her agenda this week, with the Times reporting that she will spend a few days of downtime with the king. Camilla has been working overtime to support the monarchy. Just last month, she repeatedly drove over 6 hours to a royal engagement after her flight was grounded because she reportedly did not want to let down her husband. She will resume engagements on March 11th, representing the king and leading the royal family for the Commonwealth Day service at Westminster Abbey. A source told the Times, although she was not expecting to find herself in the position of leading the family, the Queen is absolutely prepared to do whatever needs to be done for the institution. And can I just say, speaking of Harry, I think the fact that Queen Camilla is seen as leading the family is significant proof that Prince Harry would not return to temporarily support the family, because Camilla's elevated position is likely not something sitting well with him right now. He loved Queen Elizabeth II. He likely resents the idea of Queen Camilla. And we know that that's a position he felt like his mother should be in.
Most definitely. He was very nasty about Queen Camilla in his book Spare.
He was. So I imagine that the idea of her leading the family is something he has a hard time digesting.
Good morning. Fast approaching 9 o'clock. It's Wednesday, the 13th of March, and you are tuned in to Breakfast with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Nice to have you on board. The questions we're asking this morning: what took so long? Pressure on the Prime Minister as another Conservative racism row emerges over a donor's remarks over Diane Abbott, and pretty strong they were too, Catherine.
Yes, pressure on the Conservative Party to give back the £10 million. No sign of that happening, but another very bad week for the Prime Minister. I'll bring you more shortly.
As the UK economy returns to growth, we'll be chatting with Liam Halligan about what that means as the Prime Minister looks to lead us out of recession.
Sub-postmasters, what's happening next? Well, the government plans to introduce new legislation to quash their convictions. We should see that today. We'll let you know.
Keir Starmer promises Dame Esther Rantzen there will be a vote on assisted dying if he wins the next election.
Morning, there'll be very heavy rain across northwestern areas through the next few days, but elsewhere it'll be very mild. Find out all the details with me a little later on.
Racist and wrong.
Yeah.
That's how a spokesperson for the Prime Minister has branded the comments made by a major Conservative donor about MP Diane Abbott. Diane Abbott being the first black woman elected to Parliament.
Well, the comments were made by Frank Hester. He is one of the party's biggest donors. He's given £10 million in recent years. And he told a meeting that Diane Abbott, and I quote, should be shot And he also said that she made him, and I quote again, want to hate all black women. He has since apologised.
However, it was the lack of immediate condemnation of his remarks which are now causing the Prime Minister a bit of a political headache.
And possibly a financial one. Should he be giving that cash back? Let's get the thoughts this morning of our political correspondent, Catherine Forster. As you say, another disastrous week for the Prime Minister. This is not what he wants to be talking about on the morning that we've returned to growth.
No, exactly. They would like to be talking about the budget. They'd like to be talking about cutting taxes. I'm sure they will be talking about quashing those convictions for the post office postmasters. But, of course, here we are yet again in the middle of another race row, only a couple of weeks after there was a delay in condemning Lee Anderson's comments. Ultimately, they withdrew the whip. He's now gone to reform. That's another headache for Rishi Sunak. But it is a bit of a pattern, isn't it? And the opposition will say this is simply weak leadership. Again and again, politicians seem to struggle with coming out to say what is obvious to millions of people. I think in this case, they hoped that it would die down. They didn't want to say it was racist, though millions of people clearly say it absolutely is. They didn't want to sort of fan the flames of it. But in not coming out quickly and saying it was racist, as they eventually did, or the Prime Minister's spokesman last night, what that has done has inflamed this story still further, as in all the questioning now is, well, what has taken you so long? And Labour and Lib Dems saying you need to give back that money. Now, £10 million is a lot of money. Frank Hester is the Conservative Party's biggest donor. It's an election year. Last year, they were given 48 million. The line is, he's apologised. He's very sorry for offence caused. We need to forgive and move on. I would be astonished if any of that money was returned, but I suspect they won't be taking any more from him, and I suspect he won't be offering any more now that they've labelled his comments as racist.
OK, Catherine, with that, thanks very much indeed. Let's get the thoughts on this and the rest of the day's news, of course, with the Shadow Paymaster General, Jonathan Ashworth, who joins us this morning from Westminster. Good morning to you. Let's start with that story, shall we? Do you think that the £10 million should be handed back, and is that what Labour would do? Because, of course, you're no strangers to these kind of racism scandals in the party in the past.
I mean, they absolutely should hand that money back. I think the comments were racist, reprehensible, absolutely staggering that Rishi Sunak took so long to condemn them, but we do know he's a very weak leader. But he now needs to show some backbone and give this £10 million back. Every single Tory candidate, every Tory MP who is delivering leaflets, who's putting Facebook advertising out there, it is funded by this £10 million. So the decent thing to do in the circumstances is to hand this money back. If he doesn't hand this money back, it really does show you the depths to which the Tory party has sunk, and I think it would expose Rishi Sunak once again for being the weak leader that he is.
Unless, Jonathan, could you not argue that if they took that money and they used it for anti-discriminatory, anti-racist programmes, that would be a better use of it?
Well, look, it shouldn't be Tory party money. If they've condemned this man's comments, which they have, they've said they're racist. I mean, he was also sexist and, you know, sort of violent sort of references in there. He's also, by the way, apparently today criticised people or used pejorative words about people of Indian heritage. If the Tory party genuinely thinks that these comments were wrong and then condemn them, then they should put their money literally where their mouth is and hand the money back. But the fact that they're refusing to do that, I think, just reveals how weak and desperate Rishi Sunak has become.
Let's talk about growth, shall we? It's something that the Labour Party are keen to promote if and when you get into power. But the Chancellor will be very pleased to see that in January the economy grew at 0.2%. It looks like this recession that was announced last month will be very short and shallow. Your thoughts about that?
Well, people are really feeling the squeeze, aren't they? People are feeling skint, frankly. Sorry, my earpiece keeps popping out. But people are really feeling skint. They're paying more in tax. Their energy bills have gone up. Their mortgage has gone up thanks to the wreckage of the economy of the Liz Truss budget. And of course, the Tories now are proposing a big unfunded £46 billion plan, with no idea how to pay for it, that will again cause chaos on the money markets, putting mortgages up, or it potentially means pensioners paying more in tax and the future of pensioners' savings at peril. I really do think 5 more years of the Conservatives will mean the economy worsens, living standards hammered, and pensioners losing out.
That's something, Jonathan, it's an interesting point you raised there. Pensioners, maybe in the past, historically, may have felt safer with the Conservatives, but obviously not the case now. You looked at the budget last week and you saw holes in that budget, and you could see millions of pensioners actually, an average of £1,000 a year worse off. What can you do about that?
Well, as we know, Rishi Sunak loves whacking up tax on decent, hard-working people, and many pensioners are paying more in tax as a consequence of his plans. But if they go along this road of a £46 billion unfunded commitment, it severs the link between your contributions and your state pension. My mum would always say she's paid her stamps for the state pension. Well, they're ending the system where people pay their stamps. So how will people get their state pension in the future? And if they come on your programme and argue, oh, don't worry, it's not unfunded, it's a new merged income tax with national insurance, that means pensioners paying tax on their savings. So I'm warning today that the state pension, as we know it, and pensioners' savings, as they know them, are in peril if the Tories get 5 more years in power.
Do you think it's interesting, this shift to the right of the Labour Party, particularly when it comes to pensioners? I think you've said in the past that you would try to keep the triple lock if you get into power. I mean, this is something that the Conservatives have long wanted to do, but Labour have always said this is a bad deal for the young who are footing the bill in all of this, traditionally your voters. But you're now changing your tune in all of this.
Listen, people who watch the programme will have worked hard all their life for their pension. And there are people today who work hard, expecting a decent pension in retirement, and they're paying their stamps, as my mum would describe it, and of course they're paying into their works pension as well. The Tory plans mean that state pension and that works pension and any savings will be taxed potentially in the future because of their £46 billion commitment. And it also means that people now paying a pension, the link between what you pay and what you get out at the end will be severed under Tory plans. And I think Conservative ministers need to explain what this means for pensioners in the future and what the state pension would look like if the Tories get in after the next election.
Jonathan, thank you very much indeed. Sorry about your earpiece. Look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you very much.
At Britain's Newsroom, coming up at 9:30, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner will be here then. But at the moment, just you, Andrew.
Yes, indeed. We're talking about Rwanda, because it's back in the news, because the government are now saying, look, whether they're ever going to get a plane off the ground to Rwanda for illegal migrants, but they're now saying to migrants who've lost their asylum claim here that they'll be given £3,000 to relocate to Rwanda, which is interesting to a point. But I hadn't realised that we pay people £3,000 whose asylum cases fail to relocate back to their country. So we're paying people to go back even though their asylum claim was bogus in the first place. Really interesting to.
And how does that not become a pull factor? People go, I know what, I'll go and get another £3,000 and get paid to go home again. It's a money-making scheme.
But I mean, if it's that easy to send people to Rwanda, why are we going through all this agony in the House of Lords?
Well, obviously it's not that easy. They want to show physically someone doing it and thinking, and then the whole idea, the image breaks down about it, and people say, well, people have done it before and whatever. But also this idea that you're paid £3,000 just to hang around here because you mightn't be able to go back to, Africa.
Country, exactly. Because you might be gay or you might be Christian, whatever bogus reasons they've come up with.
I mean, do you know what, first place. Andrew? We don't know the half of it. We don't know who's here. We don't know why they're here. We don't know what they're being paid, and we don't know what we can do about them.
And how many are working illegally.
Yeah.
It's a shambles. We're also talking, I think it's really important, big story on the front page of the Telegraph today, Keir Starmer in conversation with Dame Esther Rantzen, saying that he will, as Prime Minister, bring forward legislation to enable the law to change on assisted dying. It would be a free vote, of course, but that is a landmark moment.
Yeah, and that could see the law change by the end of the decade. And there are lots of people who do have concerns about that. I mean, he said his own personal opinion is he would be in favour of it, but people worry to put undue pressure on people.
Well, and I think it's in the Netherlands now. They've got assisted dying. There's talk about bringing it in for children aged between 1 and 12 if they're terminally ill. I'm not sure that's what people think about assisted dying. Is it for children?
Well, that's the thing, and people use the thin end of the wedge argument, but it certainly seems in countries where it's already legal, Belgium, Holland, the rules are changing,
Safeguards
it's being
have
widened.
To be so stringent, and also post office.
Yes.
Law's going to change, so they'll finally get their convictions lifted. Parliament doing it rather than the courts. Never happened before.
Yeah, but how many of them will get it? Will everybody get it? Who are they still pursuing?
It's supposed to be every single one of them, Aidan.
Really?
Yeah, everyone. So this is, and it's only 10 pages of the bill is only 10 pages, 10 clauses. They should get that through really quickly.
Yeah, although there will be the odd person
they're going to get away
genuinely convicted of actual crimes who will magically get exonerated. But you know what? For the greater good, perhaps we'll take that on the chin.
I think so.
Interesting. All right, we'll look forward to the programme. 9:30. Thanks very much.
But if you were offered a job as a postmaster, would you take it?
No.
No, I just can't imagine. I just don't know how they would recruit in that area.
Difficult. And
maybe some of the illegal migrants.
The postmaster used to be a stalwart of the community, the doyen, people who would trust them, and the post office have managed to destroy
But you see, that word you use, community, that's exactly what it's about, because we don't have shops that are now part of the community that we would go and visit them, we'd talk to people, we'd meet people coming out.
And they'd know if Mr So-and-so hadn't turned up for a morning paper, they'd worry and they'd have someone go around the house.
Absolutely right.
Really important.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Right, time for our spring Great British giveaway. Your chance to win gadgets, a shopping spree and a whole host of cash.
Want to be a winner?
You've won £18,000.
I'm flipping heck. I don't know what to say.
Enter our massive spring giveaway with 3 big seasonal prizes to be won. There's £12,345 in tax-free cash to give your finances a spring boost. We'll also send you on a shopping spree with £500 worth of vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. You'll also get a garden gadget package. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
With that, good luck with the economy, because after the break...
Yeah, well, you'd be forgiven for missing it with all the hoobery going on. But actually, we're back into growth, which means we could be heading out of recession. Don't take my word for it. We've got Liam Halligan explaining it all after this.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Free Speech Nation. Sunday nights from 7 p.m.
I've got an idea. I think that all 30-year-olds should be given £10,000 from the banks of baby boomers. We've got a situation in this country now where millennials are the first generation in modern times expecting to be poorer than their parents. We, as 30-year-olds like me, are half as likely to own a house as people my age 30 years ago. In fact, the cost of a home in Britain compared to average incomes has as big a gap today as it did, wait for it, in the 1860s. It is a Dickensian situation.
Now, I'm sorry about the housing crisis for your generation.
You're not, though, are you?
No,
because you're profiting from it.
I'm profiting from it. Don't be ridiculous.
The house prices now,
Right.
compared to that period.
If this is the case, Benjamin,
have incomes gone up that fast?
To penalise and punish the elderly when they have worked all their lives to put into the system and say it's your fault, whingy, whiny, we're going to be envious.
We're being punished.
No, by the politics, so be the change you want to see in the world.
Taxes, I am actually, and I'm about to tell you about the change I want to see in the world.
Oh, you're good, as long as it's not whining about it.
I'm going to stop whining about it, but we are being taken advantage of at the moment to profit, to help the old. Most of taxpayers' money is spent in two departments, the NHS, so the health department, and the Department for Work and Pensions. Those departments disproportionately serve the older population. Now, I've got no issue with that, but let's not pretend that it is not young working people that is paying for the public services for old people. So actually, we are having it hard, and I just look at the future, and we see a future of perpetually higher taxes to pay for this increasing ageing population, a shrinking labour force, and you're here saying we've got nothing to worry about.
The young stop voting for mass immigration parties. The young stop voting for parties that don't build houses.
Immigrants actually pay taxes, pensioners don't.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Isabel's in a state of excitement ahead of me on this one, but your good news this morning is what?
Well, we're out of recession, hopefully. Well, actually, don't take my word for it. We're back into growth. That's all I know. 0.2% growth in January. Liam Halligan's the number cruncher.
Not 2%, but 0.2%.
It matters because well, Liam, are we out of recession or not?
Isabel, much as I'd love to give you the good news, as it were, we're not quite out of recession, but this is good news. So what is a recession? It's two successive quarters of negative growth, quarters, 3-month periods, and we had that. And now we've had 1 month, not a quarter, of positive growth. Let's have a look at the scores on the doors, as Larry Grayson used to say, ageing myself there. We see the GDP numbers. What is GDP? Gross domestic product, all the goods and services produced in an economy. From July to September, GDP was 0.1%, paltry growth above the same period in 2022. From October to November, it was 0.3% lower than October to December 2022. There's your recession, 2 successive quarters of negative growth. We've now had news this morning from the Office for National Statistics in January. Voila, plus 0.2%. So not out of recession, but certainly if we do that in February and March, positive growth will be out of recession. And all this feeds into the interest rate decision that the Bank of England will be making on next Thursday. That's the 21st of March. What does this mean for interest rates? It probably means that the Bank of England will feel less pressure to lower interest rates. If you lower interest rates, it boosts the economy. The fact that the economy is in recession may have made some of the 9 economists at the Bank of England, the Monetary Policy Committee, think, oh, we're in recession, people are suffering, maybe we should lower interest rates now. But because the economy is growing again, they'll think, we can afford to not cut interest rates because we are still a little bit worried about wage inflation, we are still a little bit worried about oil prices going up and more price pressures in the price line, but very fine lines.
But the team in the Monetary Policy Committee will be looking at all the little details of this,
all the little details,
the ups and downs
are.
Services up 0.2%, production down 0.2%. What does that mean?
This really is a tale of two economies, but it's been this way, you know, for many years in the UK. The service sector is doing pretty well. The services are almost 4/5, almost 80% of our economy. Because businesses are getting back up and running, there's more positive business sentiment, a sense that the cost of living crisis is at least the worst is over, though, of course, lots of people are still suffering. But manufacturing is still having a hard time. Lots of supply chains issues still there. A lot of manufacturers who contact me really screaming about ongoing, really high energy costs, electricity prices. House buildings come back a little bit in January, which is good news. But the consumers, what these figures show, what the fine print shows, is that consumers in general, consumer-facing services, so leisure, hospitality, things like that, the trend is there's still some 6% adrift of where they were before the pandemic.
6%?
Adrift.
Not 0.6?
No, that is a very big number in economics. So our consumer society has still not properly recovered. Now, people say, oh, you walk around London, I was in the West End last night. There's lots of activity in the centre of some of our big, prosperous cities, but across the regions, in towns, a consumer flat on his or her back in many cases because they're worried about making ends meet.
I don't know. Say you live in Harrogate, right? And you
but that's posh Yorkshire, isn't it? It's not.
No. I'm saying your train fare to London.
Okay.
Your overnight accommodation.
Oh, yeah.
Your theatre ticket, which is around £150.
It's 500 quid for a couple, isn't it?
Unbelievable.
That's unbelievable amount of money to spend.
I think people feel what you're talking about, that 6%, and I wonder, are they window shopping in London as opposed to doing anything else? You know, they get the experience, but that's it.
I think there's some of that going on, but I think families are saving up for treats rather than routinely doing nice things. Yeah, just anecdotally, a lot of people are talking to me, oh, we stayed in and played a board game, oh, we stayed in and cooked, rather than going out for a meal, as we tend to once a week or once a month. A lot of people
are... It's hard, Liam.
Absolutely.
All of it's really hard, and you talk about that 6% adrift. When is it likely, when are we ever likely to feel the way we did 10 years ago?
Eamonn, you asked me honestly, I don't think we're going to feel the way we felt before while the tax burden remains at a 70-year high. This is not an ideological point I'm making at all. It's a point of arithmetic. If more of your money is taken in taxation, and of course we've seen headline cuts in national insurance, haven't we? We've been talking about them. We had 12 to 10% in January, 10 to 8% on the main rate of national insurance coming in April. They're quite chunky changes, but they are completely blown away by the increase in the tax burden because those thresholds have been frozen, and as people's wages and prices go up, they get dragged into higher tax brackets.
Well,
that's really casting a pall, there's a good word, P-A-L-L, on the economy.
My friend. We say goodbye to you. We thank you for your input there. We thank you for...
I'll be back, as Arnie said.
The programme's back at 6 in the morning. See you then.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update. Heavy rain will persist across north and western areas through today and into Thursday, in fact. Whereas in the east, it will be much drier, brighter. And for everyone, it's going to be feeling much milder through the rest of the week. But very heavy rain will persist for parts of North Wales, the Lake District, southern areas of Scotland as well, particularly Dumfries and Galloway, seeing the heaviest of the rainfall. Further north, it should stay largely dry, apart from some very blustery showers. It will be very windy across northern Scotland. Gale force winds are expected, but in the south and east it's going to be a dry afternoon, breezy but still very mild with highs of 15 or 16 degrees if we do see any breaks in the cloud. Through tonight the rain is going to persist in similar areas, so it will stay very wet and overcast across North Wales and many northern areas of England, particularly across western coasts here, and we will see some outbreaks of rain moving into the southwest by Thursday morning. It should stay dry though in the far north and in the southeast, and for everyone it's going to be another very mild start to the day tomorrow. The rain will continue to push into northern areas, but it will shift slowly but surely further north into the central belt. Some more northern areas of Scotland seeing some rain later on in the day. We'll continue to see showers breaking out across southern areas of Wales, the southwest as well. These could turn quite heavy and be blustery too. But again, the far southeast should stay dry and bright, and we could see highs of 17 degrees. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Very good morning. We've got a lot to talk about this morning. Rwanda. Now there's talk of failed asylum seekers being sent there with £3,000 in their back pockets.
Voluntarily, so that means the courts and the House of Lords and all the other hand-wringing Liberals can't object to it. But who knew we were giving £3,000 to people whose asylum claims failed to go back to where they came from?
Yep.
Assisted dying.
Assisted dying. Sir Keir Starmer. Clear water between the two parties here. Starmer says that he will give a vote on assisted dying. Would you be in support? Don't go anywhere.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Nigel Farage, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
Well, we've been a constitutional monarchy since the late 17th century, and of course part of that deal is that the monarch, or indeed the close immediate royal family, should not interfere with politics that in any way could be seen to affect individual parties. Now, perhaps one of the most classic cases in the 20th century was Edward VIII, who during his brief reign went down to Merthyr